Welcome to Table Talk, the place for deep conversations in the Geekverse. And trust me, when we tear into a subject, we go deep. I'm Heath, and I'll be your host. Each episode, I'll be talking with one or more creators, authors, illustrators, publishers, or other movers and shakers in games, TV, books, movies, or other areas of the Geekverse. Regular guests include Douglas A. Burton, the author of Faraway Bird, a multi-award-winning historical fiction novel of the Byzantine Empress Theodora. He's also the author of The Heroine's Labyrinth, an alternative story structure to the hero's journey that often occurs in stories with feminine heroes. That structural framework frequently comes up in our analysis of story. Brianna De Silva, she's the director and co-writer of The Cultists, a Lovecraftian comedy mockumentary-style web show here on YouTube. And the author of The City of Reckoning, an epic fantasy novel of political intrigue, the ethics of war, and young love. Cameron Pasha is a screenwriter, director, novelist, and was a writer and producer on the series Kings, a producer on NBC's Bionic Woman, and a co-producer and writer for Sleeper Cell. He's also written for the CW series Nikita and Roswell, New Mexico. He's been breaking news from inside Lucasfilm, Disney, and Hollywood. His analysis and commentary have become very popular on YouTube. We regularly meet to discuss and analyze stories, and when we do, we dive into graduate-level seminars on story structure and writing. Come on in and let's go deep. And when I say we're going deep, I mean you'd better bring your hard suit. Other guests have included Lou Anders, the author of the Thrones and Bones fantasy novels, Once Upon a Unicorn, the creator and publisher of the Norengard RPG, and the author of Star Wars, A Pirate's Price, the book that explains why the Millennium Falcon is on the planet Batu at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Mark Tassin, the creator of the World of Cultists, head of Mechanical Muse, former director of the Gen Con Writers Symposium, and the head developer of the new Cool Name RPG. Let's see, who else?
Bond. James Bond.
Well, not James Bond. Not yet. Maybe soon, though. But I have interviewed Jamie Stegmaier, the founder of Stonemaier Games, crowdfunder extraordinaire, and publisher of many hit board games like Scythe and Wingspan. Brian Colin, sculptor of the world of Revelo Monster Busts, and the creator of the vast, grim, dark horror RPG. Ajit George, the Dungeons & Dragons author. We talked about game writing, education, and his contribution to Van Richter's Guide to Ravenloft and the development of the Journeys to the Radiant Citadel.
I am Hela, Odin's firstborn, the commander of the legions of Asgard, the rightful heir to the throne, and the goddess of death.
Well, actually, that interview got rather spicy, so I think I'd better just keep that one to myself. Kate Wilson, a YouTuber, actress, host, and prolific geek guru who's now working to make a new show dedicated to the world of tabletop gaming a reality. So buckle up and get ready for a wild ride, because it's time to explore the worlds of tabletop gaming, sci-fi, fantasy, and all of geekdom through the eyes of those who are making things happen.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger, ready to move out.
It's time for Table Talk.
Hello, everyone. I'm Doug, and I'll be your host tonight. Welcome to my home. Welcome to the office, and welcome to Table Talk. Tonight, we have a very special stream for you, as I'll be interviewing the godfather of the Geekverse, the Maharaja of the Morning Grind, and the Time Lord of Table Talk. Ladies and gentlemen, won't you welcome Mr. Heath Robinson?
Well, thank you, Doug. That was fantastic. Okay.
That was my best Heath.
That was wonderful. Yep. So this is Doug's show tonight.
Yep. Tonight, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be interviewing Heath. It should be a pretty fun show because we're going to get to know Heath, someone that you have been following and listening to and interacting with and partaking with for years in some cases. So we're going to get to know him. We're going to know a little bit more about his background and how he got from where he was to where he is today, and also some of the big projects he's working on. He's got a huge campaign getting started, a crowdfunding project in about a month that will launch. We'll be talking about his involvement with the Cultists and what got him there as well, and how he met some of the other people that we all know on this channel. So we're going to be digging into Heath, and I wanted to say, if you have questions for Heath, as I'm going, because I have some scripted questions, obviously, but there'll be many questions that come up off the top of my head as I go, kind of intuitively. But you all might have some questions for Heath as well. His mysterious background, for one. If you have questions, I would just ask, since he is beginning a large campaign, if you have a big question, send it in as a super chat tonight, almost like putting a tip in the tip jar. Send them in, and if you do that, I will be reading your questions to Heath, and he'll be answering them directly. If the super chat is difficult or impossible, depending on your ability or capabilities, obviously continue to put the questions in the chat. Anyway, I will try to get to as many as I can. So, without further ado, Heath, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. So I figured I would start with a few questions about your background, and then we'll move into some of the bigger topics. I have two major topics that I want to spend the most time exploring with you. And then some general questions. So first off, how long have you lived in Alabama?
I was born here. And raised here. So yes, I live in rural Alabama, although I was originally born and raised in a more urban environment, the urban environment of Birmingham, Alabama. I moved off and spent some time in Buffalo, New York for school. And then I worked in Tampa, Florida for a very little bit. And then I went to Champaign, Illinois, and lived there for a bit, and then came back to Alabama. So I've been those places, but I've gone and come back. I don't know if I will leave again. I'm hoping to explore some other places, but at the moment I'm back here.
Wow, yeah, that is a vagabond's path there for a while.
Yeah, it was for a while. So now I'm back here in Alabama, where back in deeply southern Christian Alabama, where you were, where people who make, role playing and Cthulhu and all of that isn't very well understood.
It's not as well received as it might be elsewhere. Another question I was going to ask you, always of interest, as a boy, what were some of your early creative interests?
It was writing. I did a lot of writing as a kid. And then I also read a lot of books on how to make films, like the making of Star Wars. I remember those were some of my favorite books. I had some like the making of Return of the Jedi. I remember reading those a lot, but I of course there was drawing and painting and things like that too. But I've got binders and binders of stuff that I had written as a kid.
Okay. Oh, so it's a lot of stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have the obligatory drawer full of half-written stories on notebook paper?
Yes. Well, I don't know. The ones that I started writing like the whole books, and I think for the most part they got done, although they're just written on loose leaf paper, like the lined loose leaf paper from school and stuck in binders. Right. I've saved it all, and it's in my closet where that is.
Yeah, I have something similar. Were you an avid reader as a kid?
I think so. I mean, I think there were probably people who, like you're talking about avid reader and like that. I don't know, but I was reading a lot, particularly Tolkien. That was that Tolkien was a family obsession. I remember reading The Hobbit over and over and over again, and then getting into The Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The Hobbit was definitely the gateway drug right into the Fellowship or the Lord of the Rings. Same here. When did you first get introduced to H.P. Lovecraft?
Very late. When I was, when I met David LaRocca. David LaRocca, he is a cosmic horror artist that I worked with for a long time on Elder Dice and the company Infinite Black. But I met him mean, most of these meetings, it was kind of incidental that I think he might have been friends with Lou on Facebook or something like that, and then saw that I was around, or something. And I forget exactly how we got connected, but I started to talk to David LaRocca, and he was known in the industry, like the illustrators industry, the artistic community. That's a better way to say it. The artist community of our geek artist community as um an artist, a cosmic horror artist. I guess that would be a good way to say it. A cosmic horror
Okay.
artist. And I didn't really know much about that, almost nothing. I don't think I'd ever read any of H.P. Lovecraft's stories. So I was like, what is this? He and I started thinking about working together, and he was the one who introduced me to H.P. Lovecraft and Cthulhu. And he said, but he was completely right. He said, I think you'll like this. And he was completely right. The Dunwich Horror was the first one that I ended up listening to as an audio book as I was working one day. I was like, all right, let me get into this. So I read listened to the Dunwich Horror. I guess it kind of surprises me that I didn't get into that earlier. So I mean, there's very much well into adulthood when I first encountered that. I mean, this was less than a decade ago. I know exactly.
Oh wow. Okay. So and that happens all the time.
Yeah, I just jumped right in. Yeah.
Yeah. Where did you go to college? Oh, I'm sorry. Are you going to say something else?
Well, I was going to say that but it followed very much because I was very in other interests, because our other gothic horror short story writers who all of a sudden they just left my mind. I followed the House of Usher.
Oh, Edgar Allan Poe?
Poe, right, yes. Like, I loved Edgar Allan Poe. I'd read a bunch of his work and things like that, and you can kind of see an extension between Edgar Allan Poe and then into Lovecraft, and when you're talking about sci-fi, horror, weird stuff like that. But I had not encountered Lovecraft. I stayed a lot on Tolkien. I mean, I was very much on Tolkien as a kid, and so
and Tolkien is the kind of writer, and his books are the kind of books that you can process as a child. I would say Lovecraft is a little bit more difficult. We have a super chat from Robert Romero, which is
Romano.
Right in line. I'm sorry, Robert Romano. Totally apologize for getting that mixed up. I was just going off the cuff there. Robert Romano asks, have you read Lovecraft's Color Out of Space?
Absolutely. Yes. I love it.
Yeah.
I got, like, when David and I were working together on serious Lovecraft stuff, it's what we decided. We did Elder Dice, which were dice based on the Cthulhu mythos. David and I were working on a world at that time to do stories and role-playing games in. So like this is my annotated H.P. Lovecraft collection right here.
Nice.
And I mean, I went through all of it. Well, I can't say that I've done all of it, but I went through all of the major works in great detail. There's another one right over here. Classic horror, classic, Lovecraft's classic. And if you look at this, you're going to see, you may not be able to see in the dark, but like highlighting and notes and things like this all throughout this book. I mean, we went through what David and I were trying to do when we were working together. Was we wanted to create the world of Journey to the Tree of Sorrows, which was based on the Lovecraft mythos, but we didn't want to include anything that had been done by authors after Lovecraft, because there were a lot of authors who extended Lovecraft.
Right.
But at that time, we were like, we wanted to go back to Lovecraft's original works and then extend it ourselves. So we could do an extension of Lovecraft, but we didn't want to do an extension of someone who was extending Lovecraft. So we went through and I tore through all of that, notes, highlighting. I mean, all of that. The Colors Out of Space was absolutely a major part of that, and loved it. Yeah,
that's awesome. How did you meet David?
Well, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was because he was a friend of a friend on Facebook or something and realized that I was in the Birmingham area. Now, I'm in, at the time I was near the Birmingham area, but I'm down south now in rural Alabama, more where David is. But I think that he just noticed something about mutual friends or something like that, and with mutual interests. And so we connected and ended up having dinner together. And we, at that time, ended up coming together to create Elder Dice and the Infinite Black Company.
Okay, yeah, and we will get back to that, the Infinite Black and the Elder Dice. That I want to spend some time on that. Where did you go to college?
My undergrad was at Jacksonville State, which is Jacksonville, Alabama, which is not Jacksonville, Florida, but Jacksonville, Alabama. So that's a small school that I went to undergrad at. So I went to undergrad at Jacksonville State. Then I went to the University of Alabama at Tuscaloosa for my master's degree. So I went straight from undergrad over to the master's at the University of Alabama. And then from the University of Alabama, I went to the State University of New York at Buffalo on a National Science Foundation scholarship, the IGERT scholarship, the Integrative Graduate Education and Research Traineeship in Geographic Information Science. And
okay, so was your major in geography?
My major was in geography. Yeah, my major was in geography. That was my master's as well. And then that's what I got the National Science Foundation scholarship to go and study at Buffalo.
Okay, so then at that time, did you think your career would be in geography?
My career was going to be as an academic. I was trying to be a professor. I mean, basically, as soon as I stepped onto the college campus as an undergrad, I was like, "Wow, okay, I should be a college professor." that was my thinking. So I like almost from day one that I should be a college professor. And so
when did you start to second guess that decision?
That was when I was working as a clinical assistant professor of geographic information science at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign.
Okay.
I never received a tenure track position. I was never in a tenure track position after my PhD. So I was, I went to work at the University of South Florida for a year. That's why I was in Tampa. And then after being in Tampa, I got a 3-year contract position in a teaching role. And then that ended up becoming their clinical assistant professor at the University of Urbana-Champaign. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do while I was there, because at that time I was teaching. I had a heavy teaching load because I was not in a research position. I was not in a tenure track position. I was actually there at the University of Illinois because so many of their professors had research grants that they couldn't teach their classes. So the professors, were all working on research grants, so they were not teaching. So they were like, okay, we need somebody in here to actually teach the classes here. So that was one of the. So I was covering a lot of the classes in geographic information systems, and I was trying, I was still trying to do some research writing. I published in some scientific journals, and so I was trying to also do all the teaching, but also was like, okay, I need to do more research publication and things like that while I'm here, because I was still trying to apply for tenure track positions. At that same time, we can talk about how that happened, but that my brother and I started doing tabletop game design and launching a company there. And I was trying to think, because I was only on a 3-year contract position at the University of Illinois. And I was like, well, I could really just throw myself into all of the research and publish and things like that and try to get, the entry level tenure track position as an assistant professor someplace, in which case I only get to write more research. I need to throw myself into the research in order to get that position so that I can do more research, and continue that path and to, receive tenure and things like that. And I still didn't have a whole lot of luck getting a tenure track position. And by that time, Kickstarter, tabletop games, entrepreneurship, that kind of thing had caught my interest. And I was like, maybe that's my vehicle for achieving everything that I would like to achieve. Maybe continued research is not, actually what I need to do. Like if I got the tenure track position, and then, I'm at a hardcore research university where I got to do more research and more publication in order to achieve tenure and associate. Am I happy at the end of that? Is that what I've done? And have I done what I was trying to do? And the answer to that was, well, I thought no. So I gave up trying to get a tenured professorship. And I started the journey that I'm on now, which is a continuing journey. I'd like a little bit more destination. It's been a while now, but, I decided, well, I'm just going to, there are things that I want creatively, as far as storytelling goes, as far as creating that have, come even as a kid, been there as a kid, being a writer and things like that. Well, let me try that. So I just decided, well, all right, at the end of that contract at the University of Illinois, I didn't have another place to go. So I decided, hey, I will just try this. So
you were not entrenched, but deep in the academia, and you moved around. You moved around a lot, pursuing academics and perhaps a career in academia and research in geography. And so my other question is, how much of an influence was role playing and tabletop gaming when you were younger, before college?
Before college, it was very influential. I kind of gave it up as I was in college later on, and I was like, well, now I got to focus on all this other stuff. So it was something that I came back to. But early on, so I remember you played Hero Quest with us. That I remember the Hero Quest, the original Hero Quest commercial that came on TV. And, when I saw that, I was absolutely entranced by that, which you can find on YouTube now. If you you can go look up the original Hero Quest commercial. It's like on YouTube and it's online. But, and your mom was always like, your mother's like, let me know what you want for Christmas. You start having that conversation, before Christmas comes in. And I remember just being entranced by Hero Quest, like this commercial. And then I was like, oh my God, that's what I want for Christmas. I have to have that game. That's it. And so like the next time, it may have come on while I was watching He-Man. I don't know, but whatever channel or whatever show I was, that came on, and then it would come on. And then, of course, people in the internet age do not understand this, but I'd be watching TV across the other end of the house, the kitchen's on the other end of the house. That commercial comes on again. You got to let your mother know that this is exactly what you want for Christmas. So you start yelling as soon as it comes on. Mother, mother, mother! This is it. To have her run across. The house. Yeah. People forget in the age of the internet, you could watch any commercial you want anytime by summoning it up on YouTube. And you can look it up online. You can shop for it immediately on Amazon. Back then, you would have to catch the commercial, or you'd have to drag your parents to Toys R Us or Radio Shack or, where to point out, like, hey, this is what I want. This is it. Yeah, it was like hands-on back then. There was no wish lists, or registries or anything like that. Like you had to go to work. You had to roll up your sleeves and go to work. Okay, so then RPGs were part of your childhood. Well, that game opened that up, because we played that game all the time. That became a family game. My mother would be Zargon. Like when we played that game, my aunt and uncles would come over. Like the entire extended family would come. Now, we were in a situation where we all lived next door. So I lived with my mother and my brother. Next door was an aunt and uncle. And then the house down from that was another aunt and uncle. So when it was time to play Hero Quest, the entire extended family got together for a Hero Quest game night, and we did that a lot. My uncle, one of my uncle Robert, had played Dungeons and Dragons. He was an artist. He did oil paintings. He had done many series of oil paintings, fantasy oil paintings, which were hanging in my room as a kid. like
Oh, cool.
of Gandalf and Radagast. I had a painting of him. He did a painting of Gandalf and Radagast walking through Mirkwood that was hanging up in my room. He also did a painting of the battle with the orcs in Moria in the Chamber of Mazarbul that was above my bed in my room. So he was very much involved in fantasy and role playing and all of that. He was very influential in my life. He later would play Warhammer with us. But my father was very anti all of that. We were very much also a part of the Satanic Panic. My father did not want to have anything to do. I later went to live with my father. He didn't want us to have anything to do with all of that. So that was a source of contention in the family. Although I still went and played Dungeons and Dragons with my friends in middle school and high school. We would do the classic sleepovers where you play Dungeons and Dragons all night.
Yeah, all night. You get some pizza, some Cokes.
Yeah,
we did hang out all night until you pass out.
That was absolutely what we did. So in middle school, it was in middle school that I was actually introduced to role-playing Dungeons and Dragons proper.
Okay.
And
were you more of a dungeon master or were you more of a player?
We did both. Like in middle school and high school, we did both. In fact, even in the same game, we would rotate who was the game master. So like we actually were the group that would have like the DMPC because we were all rotating often rotating through that role. And so that the dungeon master's character would just rotate to, an NPC, while that person was running the game, they would go on. So we all the people who played, we all rotated between them.
Okay, so you had a very rich role-playing, fantasy, creative tradition at home for the most part.
On my mother's side. On my mother's side.
On your mother's side, yeah. Dad maybe wasn't a big fan, but I'm assuming he's warmed to it as he's gotten older. Is that correct?
Well, or just accepts it.
Okay, so he's in the acceptance phase.
Yeah.
My dad was not a big fan of role playing when I was a kid either. He's definitely relaxed his position of it. I think he does see it now as a creative endeavor, not as a bizarre, dangerous practice. But yeah, back then, 80s, 90s, it wasn't a free pass. And it wasn't a cultural phenomenon the way it is today.
It was not. No, it was not.
There was no, there was the comic book store and they basically sold comics. Today, there are bars with role playing and tabletop themes. There is an entire world out there and it's almost it is mainstream and it's cool now. But back then, it really wasn't. So, okay, so you did have a strong tradition there, and then you abandoned some of that for practical reasons when you went to college, and you went deep into academia. And by the time you were now, do you have a PhD?
Yes, I have a PhD. I finished the PhD.
So you are Dr. Heath Robinson, technically?
I am Dr. Heath Robinson, yes.
Do you chat? Do you hear from now on, Dr. Robinson? And real quick, just to shout out, we do have a great group here tonight. We obviously have Bacon Gaming, James Bacon, Sable Phoenix is here.
Yes.
BGD has joined us, and Mike M. My mother, Sherry Lee, is here, and my sons, Jacob and Lucas. Robert Romano is here. Druden Fuzz has joined us.
Druden Fuzz is here. It's been a while. It's good to see you, Druden Fuzz.
Yeah, she unfortunately she says she has a migraine, so we wish you were here under more fortuitous circumstances, and we hope the migraine goes away. But while you're with us, it's great to see you.
Daniel's here. Daniel's here.
Daniel is here. PH Arbex is here. Great group tonight. And I do want to share real quick, BGD. Daniel is in lurker mode. We see you, Daniel. We see you. BGD sent in a question, so now's a good time to grab that. He says, you're launching a new role-playing game of your own design. How often, per week, month, or year, do you get to play traditional tabletop role-playing games, in person or online? Would you like to be able to play more? So let's start with the first part of that question. How often per week, month, and year do you get to play traditional tabletop gaming?
I never get to play in person anymore. It has been a long time since I've played. Like I used to be in a regular game with Lou that met once a month. I would go up to Lou's house, Lou Anders, who's been
Is
here
he
on
in
the show.
Alabama?
Yeah, Lou is in Alabama. Yeah, he's in Birmingham.
Okay.
So I was in a regular game with Lou. That was like up until the pandemic. So the pandemic was a big part of that. Like I'm sure it was with everybody. So we would play in person once a month up until the pandemic. And then we transitioned to some online gaming after that. But that didn't really hold. So, so the traditional role-playing game has not happened. That's actually part of the reasons why I've been trying to start the coffee shop. In fact, most of my gaming then is either with my nephews, which I don't get to play with as much as I would like, but I play Hero Quest with the nephews quite a bit, carrying on that family tradition. But that's once every couple of months or something like that. And then I try to do the Raven Keep online coffee shop where we get to play. I did get to play. Like I realized I shouldn't put it out phrased this way, that my brother and his wife invited me over for some adult gaming. But we did that the other day. Whoa, some adult gaming. But that was gaming without the children. So we played Arcadia Quest. But yeah,
adult role playing. That sounds interesting.
Yeah. So it is. Of course, right now the hurdle is an organizational hurdle, but getting people to play in an online environment is where it's going.
Well, and I have to just say, as an outsider, or as someone who has come to the community more recently, it was absolutely wonderful to meet so many people who also love role playing. So you've built a community around the Geekverse and the Morning Grind, all of whom are creative people and who love role playing and have a lot of specialist talents. So it was nice to have met your community when I did meet you. I was very impressed with that. So you're doing something right.
Thank you.
And I see that Sherry Lee has adopted the proper terminology by referring to you as Dr. Robinson. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so Bacon Gaming role playing. Come on, James. So, okay, so now another question about your home life, just to get an idea. So it sounds like your dad was, and as dads are, a little bit more on the practical side. And it seems like your mom may have been more on the creative side. Is that correct?
Yeah, I suppose in the round you could say that. Yeah.
Did your parents both were they both movie watchers? Did you watch movies with them both, or was one parent favored there more than the other?
Oh, I actually remember. Well, I mean, yeah, both of them did, but like Dad watched westerns and things like that.
Okay. Well, and that that was a lot of. He's a baby boomer. Your dad?
No, that would be Gen X.
Oh, he's a Gen X dad. Okay.
Yeah, my grandparents on my mother's side, my grandparents fought in World War II, so they were the greatest generation.
The greatest generation.
Get that. But then they had a lot of children, and my mother was later in that. Actually, I'm not exactly sure how that would line up, but their earliest children were definitely baby boomers.
Okay.
Later, I have to look how the later children line up, whether that's baby boom or Gen X or whatever. But on my father's side, my grandparents were still children during World War II.
Late 60s, I believe, is when they start. Like 1965 on, birth dates are, I believe, the beginning of Gen X. I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay, so who did you watch Star Trek more with? Your mother or your father?
Oh, mother. Oh, my mother loved Star Trek. So my mother introduced me to all of that. So that was definitely my mother. She introduced me to all that. She's the one who owned the Starship Enterprise plans, which we looked at on one of the live streams. But it was like it was a plan, the blueprints of the Enterprise from the 1970s. Mother had those, and I remember spreading all those out with her on the living room floor, looking at them all, looking at where everybody's station was, all of that. I got on VHS, the first 5 movies, the original movies on VHS. And they were in the slip case and things like that. And then later I got the Star Trek 6 when it came out.
Were those the VHSs that if you turned it sideways, they made the Enterprise facing you?
It's exactly right. It was the Enterprise on the side. That's exactly what it was.
Let me just follow up on there was a last part of the question.
I thought I said yes. I would love to. Yes.
That's what I thought, but
and that's why I tried to create the coffee shop, and the administration is organizing is the bigger thing. But if we can do that, then we're going to play a lot more.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, I knew the answer to that question without asking it. They're definitely, this community has a real passion for role playing, and a Bacon Gaming started his own channel, and
we've inspired quite a bit here. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And he asked great, deep, and profound questions about RPGs. So there's a lot of love for this tradition amongst this community. So it's just interesting for me personally, and I'm sure many people in the chat, to hear where all this came from. And it sounds like there was a pretty strong tradition in the family that got put on hold for a little bit. Okay, so geography was your major. There's some second guessing going on. And I have a question for you. Can you tell us about Afghanistan and the context around? Listen up, chat. This one's a wild one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and Afghanistan. Hey, Fletcher.
Vela Magos.
I had been looking for. Okay, Fletcher's got questions. Okay, so I had been looking for a way to get into a combat zone. Starting, I kind of with my master's degree, but certainly later in my my PhD, and then later after that, I had been trying to figure out how to get into a combat zone. I was never in the military, so of course that's one way to do it, right? Okay, one way is to be in the military, but then also, I mean, there are civilian opportunities in combat zones, but a lot of them will only accept you if you have been in a combat zone before. And so if you had been in the military and been in a combat zone, then you could, you could transition into one of those roles as a civilian. It seemed to me very difficult as just an ordinary guy, ordinary guy who is an academic, to also to be able to get over into some kind of combat environment. And I tried applying for a lot of different positions. Like I was working for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency at the end of my master's degree, like the summer after my master's degree, and then I came back during my PhD as well. So I would go to Washington a couple of summers as a intern at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, and learned a lot there about like what I like, especially about what I like, what I don't like, and things like that. So, another option is to go, they would send people to deploy into combat environments, but they didn't want to send somebody who was new into a combat environment. They wanted somebody who had already been there with the agency for a number of years or whatever. And so I was like, well, it's okay. So that's one way to do it. But do I really want to sit in a cubicle in Washington, D.C. for 5 to 8 years, for an for my rotation to come up for an opportunity to get into a combat environment? And so the answer was kind of no. That was part of my realization while I was working in Washington, that I was like, I don't really like sitting here in a cubicle, in the middle. So
what year was this?
Oh God, that was Well, when I went over there,
Yes.
what was the year when ISIS made its rampage through Iraq?
Who was the president?
Well, that would have been Obama.
Then I'm thinking 2012-ish. That's my guess.
Yeah, I was 2012 or 2013. I'd have to look it up, but yeah, someplace in there. I don't remember years quite like I should, but yeah, someplace in there. I was looking for an opportunity to go over. I was trying to get into it. It was actually, so it must have been like 2013. It must have been 2013 because I was in Tampa around 2012 because I'd applied to be part of the human terrain teams. I really wanted to be part of the human terrain teams to go over and be embedded with troops over in Afghanistan, but they wouldn't take me because I had never been in a combat environment before. I had never served in a combat environment, so I didn't get that. And so eventually I did find an opportunity, a volunteer opportunity with the State Department to go over to Afghanistan to teach geographic information systems at the University of Kabul to their professors. So what I was doing is they were setting up a geographic information systems laboratory over in Kabul, and they needed their professors to be able to teach the classes. And so the idea was that the State Department wanted people to come over, to teach their professors the classes. So then they could replicate it and teach it to their students. And so I did around that time, whichever exact year it was, but someplace around that time, get to go over to Afghanistan and teach geographic information systems to the professors of Kabul University. So that was the first time that I landed in Kabul. And that was airport. In Kabul International Airport. Yep, I landed there. That's where they brought me in. That was they had a guard with an AK-47 with me at all times. So I was actually teaching classes, and the guard with an AK-47 was in the classroom with me. So you're coming in on your landing over Afghanistan to land on the tarmac at Kabul International Airport. At what point were you like, WTF, I am in Afghanistan? And what did you see? What were the sights that were like, whoa, I'm not in Kansas anymore? Well, driving through the city was that. I mean, really, when I landed, the next thing was that I was supposed to connect with who they called the airport facilitator. This is their job to get people from the airport to wherever they need to go. So that the job is airport facilitator. I'm sure this guy was well paid. But he some kind of independent contractor of some kind. And so like find this guy and he will get you to the barracks where I was staying. I mean, it was a bit more than that. It wasn't I had my own like studio kind of apartment. They had a place where a lot of US diplomats or US personnel or a lot of contractors and things like that stayed, which was in a walled off part of the city. And that you would come into, but it's like, how do you get from the airport to there? You connect with the airport facilitator. He drives up and he's done this a million times, but he's like, all right, hi, I don't remember his name, but whatever, I'm your airport facilitator. Please step into the Jeep. You'll find back here, in the Jeep, you will find the bulletproof vests here. If anything happens, you put these on. Do not under any circumstances open the door or open any of the windows. If we are stopped for any type of for any reason, you do not open these doors or the windows in any way. If you need to hold up identification or paperwork to anybody, you do that. You put it up against the window, and let them read something through the window. Under no circumstances do you open open the doors. By the way, would you like some water? I have some bottled water here as well, and so, and then he takes you out of the airport and across the city. And that's when, there are people like herding goats throughout the city. Wow. Hey, Charlie. So, like, I
Hi,
guess that was
Charlie.
it. Like, once you get out of the airport, now the airport, I mean, it's not like it's not a major metropolis airport. I mean, this is,
Right.
but then once you get out of that, I mean, you're seeing people in traditional Afghan clothing, garbage everywhere, goats eating garbage, people herding their goats and things like that. I mean, so you got cars and things like that, like in a traffic jam with people's goats, as they're trying to get across the road and things like that. And then the facility where we were, where I was bunking or whatever, where I was quartered, was defended by the Gurkha.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the Gurkha defended it, and then whenever you came in, it was a multi-layered defense system. So, like, okay, you came up, and the outer door would open, and then you would drive into a chamber with another door, and then the outer door would close behind you. So it was just like your vehicle in basically like the keep, the gatehouse, and then the Gurkha would inspect the vehicle with mirrors to look underneath the vehicle to be sure there wasn't a car bomb in it or anything like that, and would vet the vehicle before the inner doors would open and you could drive in. So that was that when you're talking about what's your first experience with Afghanistan, seeing that driving through and then entering that location, I guess that was it.
Did you hear any distant explosions or gunfire while you were there?
There was an explosion while I was teaching class. Come to think of it, and I hadn't thought about that in a long time. Come to think, yeah, but there was. I remember there being that class being kind of disrupted by an explosion, but I don't know what it was.
You didn't go out and investigate on your own?
No, I didn't go out and investigate. They told me not to go out on the streets of Afghanistan.
Yeah, I mean,
they told me that I would not be allowed to do that. That like they don't want like me just wandering around Kabul.
Could you imagine? Hello, Afghanistan.
Hi,
It's Heath.
Here I am. Anybody want to capture me? Anybody need a hostage or something like here? But
anyone down for a tabletop game here in Kabul?
Right, but as it turned out, I probably could have. I probably could have left the facility in the evenings and gone walking around. They weren't actually checking up on me. They told me, you cannot leave. But, actually I probably could have. But at the time, I didn't want to do anything that would that would cause an international incident.
Wise policy.
Right. The Marines have to come and rescue me or something like that. Particularly since I was hoping at that time that, okay, now I can apply to other positions and perhaps be in facilitate other jobs. I wanted to behave so that I could potentially come back.
Right, of course. And how long were you in Kabul?
2.5 weeks.
2.5 weeks. And what made you?
It was only 2.5 weeks. Yeah,
2.5 weeks. What made you decide to come home?
Well, that was the end of the tour. Like I was there.
So it was designed for 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, it was only designed for 2.5 weeks. It was I was there for I think it was the 2.5 weeks. So it was 2 weeks worth of teaching at the university.
How long was the flight?
Well, I went first to Athens. So I didn't fly direct. I went to Athens, and I was in Athens for a week or 2 weeks or something like that. I was like, all right, since I'm going over there, I might as well explore some. So I spent some time in Athens, and then I flew from Athens to Dubai, and hung out in Dubai for 24 hours, and then went from Dubai to Kabul. So I don't remember exactly how long it was, but it was a multi-step trip.
Okay.
While I was out there.
Wow. So, chat, I bet you didn't know that about Dr. Robinson, his tour of duty in Afghanistan. And it's a shame they say you have to have combat. They didn't count monster combat and RPG. They don't count
They didn't count that. They didn't count that.
Haven't they seen your experience points?
Yeah. My brother could have done it. I had a brother who was in the army and was in Afghanistan and was in combat in Afghanistan. So I was always thinking that he could do those kinds of things.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. You had mentioned that in the past, and I thought that was pretty dang fascinating. So I wanted to share that with the chat and the listeners. So getting back to the stateside, you David was his name. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me how you and David started. No, did you get involved with any Kickstarters before working with David?
Right. Yeah. So my brother and I started working together on game design before I left the University of Illinois. I think in my last year there. Like my brother and I are close. This is Seth, and we had been playing video games. I don't play a lot of video games, but he had bought World of Warcraft for me when I went to do my PhD. So we would play World of Warcraft together as a way to catch up. Hang out and
cool
and catch up. He played a lot more than I did. I played quite a bit with him, and then we played Diablo 3. When Diablo 3 came out, I was in Illinois, and he was like, "All right, we're gonna play." So we played that together as well. But eventually, we decided, we should take all of this time that we're playing these games, and we should create a game. And I had around that time, I guess it was just before that, I had gone to a group of friends. I'd gone to hang out with a group of friends at what we called the formal. Our friends would get together and we would have rent a house or something at either at the beach or the mountains. And I remember going to one of our formals, and the original zombie side, one of the guys named Rodger had the original zombie side there. And, all right, yeah, let's play. I was like, what is this? And I was like, this is neat. He was like, I got it on Kickstarter. I was like, what's Kickstarter?
Wow.
And so he clued me in on that. And then, so that was a major turning point in life, because then I was like, hey, there's this thing, Kickstarter. This was very new at the time. And I told my brother, well, like, if we wanted to design a game, we could try to design a game and take it to Kickstarter. And so we stopped playing Diablo 3 and spent all that time designing War of Kings, which was the first game that I had brought to Kickstarter. So my brother and I first worked to bring, and that was when I got the taste of that side of things as a potential way to make things happen that I wanted to do, which I'm still very much on that journey, but that through crowdfunding and that kind of thing that I wasn't ever going to get as part of the university. So I was like, I had that experience before I left the university with my brother, and he and I did several projects together. Now, we didn't generate revenue fast enough in the end over several projects, so my brother didn't stay with me. He was like, okay, I got to bow out. He's married. He's got kids. He's got things like that. I completely understand. We didn't have a smashing success,
but it dipped your toe in the water.
But it did and it was successful. I mean, we did several projects together. We did War of Kings. We did several Terra Tiles campaigns, which brought out 3 different Terra Tiles, which is a terrain system for role-playing games. And then we did a second game called Enchantress. So I believe my brother and I did 5 campaigns together. I mean, we did 5 Kickstarter before he was like, okay, we're not generating the level of revenue that I need in order to support my wife and kids.
Right.
Now, completely understandable. And then I was like, okay, well, now what do I do? Okay, I've left the university and I'm just kind of floating around. And then that's when I met David, and I was like, okay, we could do this Kickstarter thing. And we hit upon the idea of Elder Dice. And so he and I did Elder Dice.
So, and was that the one and only project you did under Infinity Black with David?
No, Infinite Black. No, we did several projects. We did 4 Elder Dice campaigns. We got together. Okay. Yeah, we got together and we did the original Elder Dice campaign. We weren't thinking about starting a company together or anything at that time. We were just like, he was an independent artist, contract in independent artist. I was, kind of floating around loose after my brother had left, and I didn't have, anybody else to work on projects with. I was like, well, what do I do? So he and I got together to do the dice campaign of the first Elder Dice campaign. And then after that, he and I decided to work together in a more extended capacity. That's when we founded Infinite Black. We founded Infinite Black after the first Elder Dice campaign. and we had intended it as a IP building company. We were going to build IP, but we ended up doing a lot more dice. We ran 4 Elder Dice campaigns.
And what was your most successful campaign there out of those 4?
The Elder Dice, the shards. Let's see, Elder Dice, Shards of Illumination.
Retro's
hey,
here.
Retro Nerd Girl. This is it, right? Shards of Illumination, because it was the first campaign was just Elder Dice. Then the second one was I'm trying to remember all of their names. Hang on, let me just go over here to Kickstarter and search. Because it depends on whether you're talking about money raised or you're talking about backers, total backers.
I'm thinking money raised. What was the most successful monetarily?
So the colors out of so it was the original Elder Dice campaign, then it was Elder Dice Unspeakable Tomes. That was the second one. Elder Dice Unspeakable Tomes. Then Elder Dice Colors Out of Space.
Okay.
So that was specifically about the based on the Colors Out of Space. That one raised $804,000. $804,194.
Wow. So
that,
and then did you and David split that? And obviously
right,
after
so we were in
it
50-50. Now that's gross. That's gross. That is not something we put in our pockets because we had to produce all the dice and stuff. That's gross. If you think about business, gross is not what you put in your pocket in any way.
Right.
So then Shards of Illumination. So Shards of Illumination, the last one that I did with him was the most successful as far as money raised. That one raised $840,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that is that's incredible. Those are huge numbers. How many backers was that?
That one was 7,212.
Wow. Okay.
But when you're talking about that, that was actually just as we were going into COVID. We were launching Elder Dice Shards of Illumination, which is a fantastic dice set. I love those dice. That was when COVID was starting. COVID was starting there. And 7,212 backers came out for $840,000. But the previous campaign, Elder Dice, The Colors Out of Space. In fact, I was going to put this up. So this is what they look like. If you haven't seen this, this is Elder Dice Shards of Illumination. So those were the dice. Each set is based on a different symbol from the Lovecraft mythos. And they come in a magnetic spellbook box. So those boxes behind them is a magnetic spellbook box, and you have the whole array of polyhedral dice. Like back then, when we started this, a lot of people do dice now, but Elder Dice was one of the very first dice campaigns on Kickstarter. A lot of people do dice now. We kind of kicked that off. And also, we made it a point, because this was also when we did the original Elder Dice campaign, we made it a point that we wanted the symbol to be on the highest value of
20.
the die. Right, and not
6,
the 1, because there weren't a lot of other dice out there with symbols on them at that time, but a lot of the symbols would be like on the 1.
Right.
And we were like, no. We want when you see the symbol for it to be good. Now, of course, some games you've got to roll low. So, I mean, you can't do it. But the idea was that, no. We want the symbol to replace the highest value. So this is the Shards of Illumination sets. Colors Out of Space. That one. So this is the Colors Out of Space. That's the Seal of Yog-Sothoth. That's the Eye of the Star of Azathoth. What was it? Oh, the Eye of Chaos. The Eye of Chaos. The Seal of Yog-Sothoth and the Star of Azathoth. So that's the Eye of Chaos over here. That one's about Nyarlathotep. Yog-Sothoth, Seal of Yog-Sothoth, the Star of Azathoth over here. So that was the third campaign. That one had 9,305 backers. 9,305. So that was the biggest campaign by number of backers.
Okay.
But the other campaign, because they were more expensive dice, they were hand poured dice. I mean, the Shards of Illumination were more expensive per set because they were more expensive to produce per set because they were hand poured into molds. So we had, but so our largest campaign by people were 9,305.
Well, that's very impressive, and that the dice look incredible. I think I speak for everybody in the chat for that. And obviously, it seems like there was a great demand for that dice. And yeah, any person who ever has played an RPG or a tabletop, your dice are like your magic weapon. I never touch my friend's dice, and they don't touch mine. Like, you have your special dice, you roll it a certain way. So that dice set or those dice sets would easily be a favorite dice set immediately for anyone who got those.
And hey, let me say let me bring this up, because if you don't have Elder Dice and you want some, part of the lead up to the release of the Cultists RPG is I've got $500 worth of Elder Dice actually sitting right behind me. I got all these Elder Dice sitting right here, and so I'm doing a $500 Elder Dice giveaway. So here's the link right here. So I'll put in the chat link to giveaway. So I know some people have already signed up, but in the next 30 days, I'm really going to be putting this out. That's be part of the advertising and stuff for about 30 days up to the release of the Cultists RPG. Now I hit the button to put that in the chat, I believe. If you haven't signed up there, sign up there, and then on the Morning Grind live stream, we'll draw for $500 worth of Elder Dice.
Wow, that is incredible. When is that drawing again?
I will draw the morning that the Cultist RPG goes live. So
and do we have an exact date yet?
About 30. I don't have an exact day yet, because as soon as I start advertising, which I could do is starting tomorrow. I could do as soon as tomorrow. I was working on making promotional videos today, and I didn't quite get done with it. Actually, I've still quite a distance from it. So I'm going to be working on the promotional videos tomorrow as well. But then as soon as I start promoting that, I'm going to do 30 days of promotion prior to the campaign, and then launch the campaign for the Cultist RPG for 3 weeks. So we're roughly 30, 32, 34 days, something like that, out from this giveaway, something like that. So as soon as the videos are finished, they go out, they start getting promotion. 30 days after that, we'll launch the Kickstarter campaign, and I will draw for $500 worth of Elder Dice that morning.
Let's all do that. Let's support Heath in that. And honestly, the dice, I mean, they look fantastic. That's not just signing your name to a list. That you're lining up to get something pretty awesome there. Okay, so getting back to where we are here. So you had 4 successful, some more successful than other campaigns with Infinite Black, with working with David. Obviously, you said the gross isn't what you put in your pocket, but obviously you made some good money there. Certainly enough to probably signal to you that this is a path toward income, right? That had to get in your mind.
Well, sure. I mean, we had a successful business. Yeah.
Okay. So then I saw someone already asked it, but it's the inevitable question. Obviously, you're no longer with Infinite Black. What happened to end that work together?
That's my question. What led you to leave Infinite Black?
Yes.
Yeah, we were doing fantastic, and I loved working with David. David is fantastic. He is an amazing artist. I mean, we did such incredible work together. That absolutely was the case. But the main issue was that when we founded Infinite Black, we were founding it as an IP company. Our intention was to develop intellectual property. And so I've talked about Journey to the Tree of Sorrows before. Journey to the Tree of Sorrows was his world, which led to the development of the Cultists. But Journey to the Tree of Sorrows was his world, which was based on the Lovecraft mythos. And then so when we created that company, he said, all right, you put in your world and I'll put in my world to the company. So we gave our worlds to the company. So he gave Journey to the Tree of Sorrows to the company, and I gave Theophany, the story about the fall of Lucifer in that world. I gave that to the company. And so we said, all right, so what we're going to do together is we're going to develop these 2 intellectual properties, and through stories, through different products, and try to make them as valuable as we can. Well, as it turns out, it's very difficult to turn a battleship. We got together and created Elder Dice it's like, all right, so what do we do? We just met each other, like, okay, we mesh well together, we can work well together. What kind of product can we create to bring out to the world? And we did Elder Dice. And then after that first campaign, we decided to, form a company together. And then that's when it was going to be IP company. And we're going to develop these two worlds. But we kept doing Elder Dice. So it's like, all right, so another Elder Die, now more Elder Dice. Okay, so then no, we can't. Is it time to do the RPG? Because we were developing. I wrote a whole RPG for Journey to the Tree of Sorrows. I wrote an RPG that's a very serious Cthulhu mythos RPG that I really wish were out there. I wrote that for Journey to the Tree of Sorrows. Fantastic work, I think. I mean, that was all the stuff that was very well researched by the mythos, an extension directly from the original stories and things like that, not including anything else, not considering things that other people added. We went back to the source and we created all this, but we weren't ever able to turn that battleship, as it were, from going from, hey, we're a dice manufacturer, to, hey, we were supposed to be making these IPs. We're supposed to be building these worlds. We're doing these kinds of things, creating this RPG. And David ultimately decided that he liked making dice, which is good.
So he wanted more product.
Yeah, so he was very much
gratification,
and that's different, because I don't have a wife, I don't have children or anything like that. So I guess a history of my kind of journey through life has been taking higher risk kind of endeavors. Do they pay off? Sometimes they don't. Sometimes, like, I'm the guy who often has to go through and figure out, how do you make something work? And then want to figure that out and then implement it. Like, I mean, my brother and I, Seth and I, were definitely trying to, like, how do you make Kickstarter work? Through our games, not only how do you make Kickstarter work, but how do you do international manufacturing? How do you do international shipping? How do you coordinate fulfillment across the entire world? I mean, that was a skill set that needed to be developed. And I brought that skill set to Infinite Black. David definitely brought, like, the artistic look of the Elder Dice. That was all David. I mean, that's when you're looking at the artistic development, that was David. So, the history of my life then is like, hey, let me go do something high risk to see if I can learn something and do something. But if you've got a wife and you got kids, then you are understandably often not as interested in the risk.
Right? Well, it depends. I mean, it depends. Obviously, stable income is pretty important, and but
often
sometimes you got to go for it.
But I mean, so we had found something that had worked, and so David had talked to me about, hey, listen, we're making dice. Maybe we should make dice for for other IPs, like, because other people. Excuse me, other people had come to us and asked about making dice, and David was like, should we go out and try to make dice for other brands, like get licensing deals with other like Stranger Things or something like that, and make dice? And I said, well, that's not really the purpose of what we, that's not our purpose. That wasn't, like, we can spend,
that wasn't the original plan,
develop our worlds, right? Then yeah, sure. We could do product. We could spend all of our time making products for Stranger Things, like try to go out and get a Stranger Things license to make them some dice.
Sure.
We could do that, but does that actually contribute to the development of our IP? So that was what, that's why we ultimately divided, because I was like, okay, listen, so ever since then, I have been on this track, which has not been going too well. I'm still on the journey here. I keep resetting. I can always reset myself because I don't have, like, I always say that, like, listen, if I die, no one will care. And that's such a fantastic thing. Because, like,
that's
like,
not true. Am I right, Chad? Come on.
That, like, no one is depending upon my income for, for food or anything like that. If I don't make it, then it's, so I have that kind of freedom to go and experiment and do that kind of thing that other people don't. So I left Infinite Black to try to develop a methodology again. That's like, okay, so my purpose is, how do I develop a sustainable methodology for the creation of story and product. And so that's what I've been trying to do. And I'm trying to put that together again with this release of this RPG that's coming up. And so if I can develop this methodology, I don't want to do it again. This will be the last one that I developed. If I develop this methodology to have a system for creating stories and IP, then I will. Then that's what I set out to do. When I left the university, so I'm still trying to actually hone in and figure out how do I actually create a system for the creation of stories and products that I can do, and I'm still trying. So David, I think David's running an Elder Dice campaign right now. Like David is doing
He's still doing it, huh?
Right. So David's doing another Elder Dice campaign right now, and I know that like Infinite Black has a booth at Gen Con still. I mean, I used to go to Gen Con with Infinite Black. I created I did all the woodworking for all of our shelves and things like that. I mean, I'm very proud of what we created for Gen Con and things like that. We went to Origins and it was so much fun. But at the end of the day, okay, so what am I supposed to be doing with life? Is it creating a dice company? Okay, no, it's not. Okay, then I have to go do something else. So I have been fighting the good fight ever since then. Hopefully something will work.
Okay. Well, and I think we've been on some of that journey.
Here's where everybody says BG. Oh, I'm sorry, Doug. But I say that's where everybody says. Everybody says go and get a wife, right? Go and get a wife, right? I know, but I've been against that.
Against
everything in my life, like everything that in my life that I've been trying to do, people have told me, oh, in order to do that, you have to have a wife that makes a lot of money.
Dude, there's no rules to any of it. There's no rules to any of it. You can find your way forward.
People, like when you're going to graduate school or you're getting a PhD, what do people tell you? Oh, just get married to a wife who's making a lot of money. Then you can go to graduate school and then you can get your PhD. Then you can, do that. Or like if you got to do a postdoc or something that doesn't pay any money. Okay, well, no problem. If you're married and she's making money, that's no problem. When people talk about the gaming environment, the gaming area, like how people tell me, oh, I'm able to make games. I won't say who this is, but there are other people like, oh yeah, I'm able to make games. How am I able to run my game publishing company? Because I'm married and my wife makes a lot of money. And so here I was again, in an environment where people were telling me that, oh no, you can't do this sustainably, get married. And so I'm not doing that. So I'm going to find out how to do this without having to have a wife support me.
Right on. All right, Heath, I'm going to go back. I have a question for you from Sable Phoenix. He says, does the Journey to the Tree of Sorrows RPG have a rule set with it, or is it all lore and world building so far?
When I wrote that book, I wrote it with the 5e rules, the Dungeons & Dragons 5e rules. So the entire book was done with that. While we were working on that, we were trying to decide whether or not we would create our own rule system or not. And so that was, because I wanted to do my own RPG system for a while anyway. And I was like, you know what, we could do our own system that could work for both Journey to the Tree of Sorrows and Theophany. And so we did experiment with that for a while, trying to develop a rule set. But when you're operating in this kind of environment, you're operating in a world where you're having to do everything. I mean, you have to do everything. And, so that's world building. That's your rules development. That's also all of your marketing. That's also all of your fulfillment, all of your product creation. And so at the time, there were two reasons that we decided not to develop our own rules. One was there was just no time. There's like, okay, like we're trying to develop our own rule set, but it would be better if we could just import another rule set. And that ended up being David's call because that was his world. Journey to the Tree of Sorrows was his world. So he ultimately made the call that's like, hey, everybody already knows the 5e rule set, so let's just use that. It's already developed. It's already known. It's already in the marketplace. Let's just apply Journey to the Tree of Sorrows to it. And so I ultimately said, okay, because it was his world anyway. It's like, all right, if you want to go 5th edition rules, then we're going to go 5th edition. But that was years and years and years ago. So yeah, the whole book was written with lore and all 5th edition rules.
Okay. Okay, so you decided then that you weren't going to continue just doing Kickstarters with Infinite Black, that, you know, that making dice, although some semi-profitable, it just wasn't your initial goal. So you wanted to follow through on your initial goal with creating some IP. So, which takes us to, I think, the last 3 to 4 years, I believe. When did you start a YouTube channel?
I had a YouTube channel throughout most all of that. I had actually been documenting, I had been running a YouTube channel documenting like the building of a tiny house that I was living in when I left the university.
Okay.
So I had been trying to do YouTube for years and years. Now I've only been live streaming for, I think, less than 2 now, just less than 2, but something like that. But no, I had been trying to do YouTube for a while. Yeah. We had YouTube.
Did you take the money that you made from Infinite Black and roll that into anything specific?
Well, I rolled it into the product creation on the Ravenkeep side. So Ravenkeep, the new company that I founded after that. So I put a lot of money into the development of like the action figures behind me that you can see, the Tales of Ravania action figures, which are not released, which are still prototypes, but still the development of those prototypes, things like that. So basically I put the money into product development on the Ravenkeep side, and also, you know, just general sustaining while I was trying to write new materials and things like that. But I have not been able to marry the world, the story.
Well, it's hard. I mean, into
the Cultists. I mean, the Cultists was funded through that. The Cultists was not a cheap show.
So that's what I was trying to get to, because that's what I always thought, but I didn't know for sure. So
yes.
When did you get the idea that you were going to take some of the money that you had made and fund a TV show?
So even though we were making dice at that time, you know, I was still trying to talk about, okay, so what are we going to do with this IP development? How are we going to go about this? I mean, I had no idea. I still really have no idea, but I mean, really no idea. Like, still trying to figure all of this out. We wanted to know, how do you do, like we were talking about, how do you do a pitch? I mean, I still think that some of the Journey of the Tree of Sorrows material and the stories that were being created there, and that we created a RPG adventure, but this is it's Vikings and Cthulhu, man. The story we created, I mean, that could have been great. Like, how do we pitch that? You know, and so we were trying to figure out what that would take. That was the very early days of that. But we didn't know how to create any kind of show or anything like that. And so I said, well, while, you know, I had some extra time. And so I was like, well, why don't I try to figure out, how do you actually make a show? How do you shoot something? So if I needed to make like a scissor reel or a sizzle reel or something, or some type of trailer or something about what we wanted to pitch, what we wanted either Journey of the Tree of Sorrows or Theophany to be, like, how do you even do that? I mean, I had zero experience in that at the time. And so I did 2 things. Then I was like, okay, how do you create shows? One, I created an unscripted show that was Dinner and a Board Game. That was the first show. I said, all right, that's not a scripted show, but let's do Dinner and a Board Game, which is now kind of being relaunched its own channel too. Renovated my whole house to do that show. Like, I created my house to do that show. That's I created my, like, this bedroom over here, which is, I created a YouTube about this other bedroom that's here in my house beyond this wall. Tore it apart and turned it into a dungeon as a film set for Dinner and a Board Game. So brought a team of people together to do Dinner and a Board Game in order to practice doing a show. We did one season of 10 episodes of Dinner and a Board Game, where my co-host Megan and I would cook dinner, and then we would play a board game together. So we did it. You know, it was like, all right, because that's part of my philosophy then about, like, learning how do you do something. I don't have any idea how you do a show like that.
Right.
I'll just do it. I will learn by just doing it. So I just threw myself into it. I got the team together and we did it. We created a season 1 of that show. Now, the marketing of that show was another, animal and whatever else, but the production of it, we did, and we got it out there. But then I was like, okay, now the next thing is we need to know how to do a scripted show. If we script a show, how do we shoot that? How do you organize that? I mean, the processes of trying to organize a scripted show like that are huge. Everything you have to do. And so, but we wanted to do that. And Brianna was then. I was talking to Brianna at the time too, because Brianna was on the Dinner and Board Game season 1. Brianna was on Dinner and Board Game season 1.
Real quick, is this when you met Brianna Da Silva?
I had met her before that.
Okay.
A year or two before that on Twitter. And she came and lived with me for a while.
Okay.
And we shot Dinner and a Board Game. And we were going to shoot Dinner and a Board Game, then we were going to go right into the Cultists. But the Cultists was had to be delayed. I remember whatever year it was. I don't even remember what. I told you I'm really bad on all these years. I know other people call off years and dates and things like that, and I can't. But at one time, there was we were planning on shooting that before Thanksgiving of one year, and then we realized we were just out of time, and so we delayed it. We delayed the Cultist shooting until February of the next year. So
you are the writer, producer, and an actor in this show. Is that correct?
Yes. I say that I am the creator, co-writer, and producer. So that was my role. Season 1, that was a creator, co-writer, and producer. Well, I guess I did have a small cameo in season 1. So I'm on screen for a few seconds in season 1. But then I also act as Steve in season 2 and portray one of the major characters.
Okay, so let's focus on season 1 then.
Okay.
So how did this come together?
Okay.
Were you the spearhead behind this idea?
I was. Okay. So the Cultists, if you don't know, and I think most people who are here live in the chat do, but the Cultists is the web show, my web show that has now recently been rebranded and relaunched on its own YouTube channel. I will bring that up right here. So this is the Cultists YouTube channel. I'm going to put this link in the chat. So if you have not subscribed here, the Cultist channel, there it is. So the Cultists is my comedy web show about modern day Lovecraftian cultists who just want to worship Cthulhu in a world full of people who don't understand. And it's a mockumentary style show.
Like The Office, like Parks and Rec.
Like The Office. I was highly inspired by The Office. I had not seen Parks and Rec when I did this show, but Brennan, the director of photography, had, and a lot of his camera work is inspired by Parks and Rec because he was a big Parks and Rec fan.
Okay.
So you'll see that in here. So the entire season 1 is over here on its own channel. You can come over here, and I would love for you to subscribe and watch. Each episode is only 5 to 8 minutes. The entire first season is only an hour long. So yes. So I just saw Sable say, this Heath guy is a great guest. You should have him on again. Thank you, Sable.
Sable, if we can get him back, we will.
But okay, so how did that happen? Okay, it happened because
pre-production.
Well,
or let's go to conception.
Okay, the conception. Okay, so the conception was as I was working with David on Journey to the Tree of Sorrows. That was very serious Lovecraft. But as two guys do, when you're talking about very serious, subjects, that you also tell a lot of jokes, and also I think it's really cool that in the fandom of the Cthulhu mythos, even though it's something to be taken seriously, and at its core, you have to have something that's serious, so that we treat the original story seriously. We treated Journey to the Tree of Sorrows as a serious extension, horror stories and stuff like that. But naturally, there are some jokes that come up, and there is a lot of inside jokes that go with the Cthulhu mythos and all of its fandom that that is there anyway, and so we were telling jokes and when it's done come out jokes to each other and we were talking about it, whatever. And I said, these things are so good. I'm going to write these down. So I just had a notebook and I would write down anytime some kind of joke or something that came up as we were writing Journey to the Tree of Sorrows. I just kept a notebook of jokes and things that we had said. And then, Brianna and I had been talking about, like, how do you get into film? How do you get into, and I was sitting there at a bar one night as I was, having a beer, and I was flipping over my notes, and I was going, I got all of these notes on these jokes. This should become a web show. Maybe this is something that's practical to do and learn the techniques of filmmaking and, a web show and doing the scripted show. And so I started right then, whatever night that was at the bar, as I had all of these notes, and I just started typing into my laptop. I was like, all right, so what's the script going to be? And so I just started typing up scripts that became the Cultists. I typed about half of them, and then eventually I said, okay, Brianna, I got this idea here, but I'm running out of steam here. So will you take it and take a look at it and write? So she became my co-writer on that. So, the scripts are written 50-50, as far as writing credits go between me and her. The genesis was that my book of jokes that I had from Journey to the Tree of Sorrows. And then she and I wrote it together, and then we're like, all right, what would it take to produce this? Like, once we had gotten them written.
Okay. And did Brianna have any experience or pre-existing passion for Lovecraft but at this time?
Brianna was also not a Lovecraft person. Now, she dove into it and started reading a bunch of stuff after we decided to write that. I probably as she was writing it, but especially before she started directing it. She was like, I'm going to dive into. So she did a deep dive into Lovecraft herself in order to prep for the writing and the directing of it. So yeah, so that yeah. She also didn't have the history like I had, I also did not have.
Well, sometimes someone who comes in out of the blue can soak it all in at once, and they can become incredible.
But she dove into it. I mean, she dove into it. She's like she wasn't going to direct it if she didn't know the stories, and write it if you know the stories. So she dove into it, learned it like I did before I started with Journey, and then created it.
Okay, so that's the conception phase. When did this move into an actual production? And did you have a budget set up at the onset, or did the budget create itself?
Well, I mean, there was a budget because I had money, and this was self-funded. So it was, I had the budget.
Did you set up a company to run this through?
I didn't have to set it up because, but I did run it through a company. Yes, I did, because the company that I had with my brother was called Rain Studios, Robinson Applications and Innovations. That was the company, but then my brother just left it, so that left me with the company. So I mean, he signed it over to me. So then I took
and it
that.
Still works. You're a Robinson.
Yeah, well, it still works. That became Ravenkeep. So I just changed the name of it to become Ravenkeep. Probably at that time or something like. After that time, I was like, okay, I'm going to change the name to Ravenkeep. So I still had that legal entity, that legal structure, and I ran the creation of the Cultists through that.
Okay. Did you have a budget at the pre-production stage?
Yes.
Okay, so you have a budget.
When did
you? What's that?
We blew
the budget, past the budget.
Oh, I'm sure. I don't remember all of that, all the details.
Wait a second. Amateur filmmakers blew past the original budget.
Yeah. I mean, even if you think the Cultists, I mean, the Cultists season 1. Now, season 2 is not out on the new channel yet. So I'm going to release the season 2 later because we've shot 2 seasons of it. You're going to see a dramatic increase in production quality between season 1 and season 2.
Okay.
But even for everything that season 1 is, because we're still learning. I said this entire thing was a way to learn. But even as for what it is, people are often surprised at the cost of even something like what you see that the season 1 is. It's expensive.
Yes.
And we don't have a great economic model to produce independent stories like that. And I've been trying to work on that. That's my purpose. That's what I'm trying to work on. But yeah, that at the time I had extra cash, and so I self-funded. Brianna and I called it our film school because I never went to film school. Brianna never went to film school. Brianna wants.
I thought she went to Full Sail.
Like that. Yeah, she did. Right? Yeah, but not for film, for graphic design.
Okay.
So she never went to. Neither one of us had any type of film education, and so. We basically decide our creation of Dinner and a Board Game and the Cultist season 1, I call my film school. Like, no joke. we just did it and we learned. So I learned everything to do with filmmaking through making of the Dinner and Board Game and the Cultists, and then also I consider an extension of that filmmaking what we do here on Table Talk, which is our analysis of story. So a lot of those things have been set up that you're seeing as self-education for what I've been trying to do.
Okay, so you're so
Brianna
this
said,
was really
one day-
driven by so you have a film school with the concept of we're gonna create the product and we're gonna learn as we go, and we're gonna gather experience, and we're going to hone our craft on the run,
basically, yes.
So it was a school. It's a school of experience, hands-on experience.
It has been. I didn't know anybody
so-
in film. Brianna said one night, she said, as we were like having a drink after maybe after scouting location or something, she says, I really love that your strategy for learning how to make a film is just make a film.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Learn by doing. Yeah. Mike M just said it. Okay, so what was your first step in the actual production process? You had to hire actors, you had to get costumes, and you had to pick sets. What came first?
What came first? Okay, so after we had the scripts, we learned all about the script breakdowns in order to figure out what we needed to create and what locations we needed. I don't remember exactly what was absolute first, but very early on, location scouting was one of them. Like we needed to figure out the locations for these. My cousin Megan, who's the co-host of Dinner and a Board Game, she was the costumer for the show. So she did costuming early on, but you had to have the actors before you did the costuming. I mean, you can do sketches and things like that, but you need the actors' measurements in order to actually create costumes. So we were originally just going to shoot this with all of our friends. We were just going to do it's just whoever we got. We're just going to shoot the
typical strategy. Yep.
Yeah, and we're going to shoot it on our phones. I said, let's just shoot it on our phones. It's going to be episodic. It's going to be skit-like, and it just continued to grow because I'm the poster child for scope creep. And so we did. And it continued to grow. It continued to grow. We realized we needed more people. Our friends weren't available, so we had to do an actual audition and casting call, which was so much fun. Like we put out.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Where did you advertise for an audition?
Facebook.
We
advertised on Facebook and put out to different Facebook groups were a much bigger thing at that time. Different Facebook groups that had to do with acting and in the area and stuff like that. And we said, hey, we're doing this show. Here are the sides. Here's what you're going to be reading for the auditions. We're going to be auditioning at the Hoover Public Library. Those audition tapes are still out there someplace at this particular date. And we had so many people come out. We filled an entire day at the library auditioning people for the show. I was shocked. Wow. I was like, we could do this and we could have nobody show up. Nobody could.
Totally.
I don't know. But yet we had it may have been like a 9-hour day of auditions where Brianna was there. Brennan was there as the director of photography, recording all of it. I was there, but really it was Brianna's call because she was the director. So she was really one that was running the auditions. And we did about 9 hours of auditions, just constant all day of people coming in and reading for different parts.
So if Brianna was so cool. Yeah. What's that?
I said, that was so cool because then it was like, oh my God, this might be something real.
It starts to get real at that point.
And people are showing up. That was the first step of the incredible experience. I love being on set and doing that. I wish I were able to do that more. If I could come up with a system for the independent production, then I guess I would be able to do that. But I think I told Brianna during the production, I was like, I completely understand why people go and become film hippies and just go and work on film sets and stuff like that all the time, because that whole thing was such a great experience.
There's a vibe. Yeah, there's definitely a vibe. But there's a culture that builds up around it. How many roles were you casting for the season 1?
Oh God, a lot. Too many. Now there's one lesson that this show is basically an ensemble cast. there are a lot of characters, and there are also a lot of characters who in season 1 are all in the same scene. Like we got like 8 characters, and they're all have to be in one scene.
Right.
Like that was a lesson learned that, like, okay, for your
That's a
first
challenge
run
for the
out,
director.
don't say, hey, we're going to have a cast of 12 and many of our scenes will have all 12 actors all in them. But yeah, it was a lot. Something like, Mike, and then the 2, Ben, Dave, Ben, Dave, Mike, Rob, the 2, I mean, like 12. I mean, it was probably 12 or 14 different roles.
About 12 to 14 roles.
Yeah.
And real quick, Robert Romano sent in a super chat. Thank you, Robert. And he quoted the spirit here, Heath's spirit of an approach to filmmaking. He likened it to Indiana Jones from Raiders of the Lost Ark retro. We just watched that one. I don't know, making this thing up as I go. The improvisation of excellence.
Just learn. Oh, Bacon. So Bacon was a film hippie.
Oh, awesome. Bacon, I did not know that about you, but that's really cool. Yeah. Film work has its own vibe. Like and it's really something you can only get from that. And there's the technical side of it on behind the scenes, and then there's the the actor side of it in front of the camera. And then of course there's post-production, which we'll get to that in a second. But okay, so you are casting the roles. Who were your big standouts during the auditions?
Well, all those who actually ended up getting roles. I mean, because
were there any that stood out like that? Like, oh, this is that person right away.
Yeah. Well, definitely Rob, Dax Rocker, who plays Rob. He came in and got that part. He was late. I remember he was coming in late. He was a bit late for the audition for whatever reason. And he sat down and he said, I'm really sorry that I'm late or whatever. I don't remember the exact quote, but he was very apologetic. And he said, I've just been running to get here. Do you mind if I have a couple of minutes to get focused? Like, it's not his exact words, basically that. And it's like, Brianna was like, okay, well, no problem. And then he turned in on himself and just like breathed, and got himself refocused after running from the parking lot or wherever it was that he was doing that. And then he set back up and then he started reading Rob, and he just was Rob. It was instant.
Oh, like that was the one that clicked immediately.
Yeah, that was instant. It's like, okay, well, we just found Rob. But, that was
Rob.
That was amazing. Rob.
Rob.
Dax is Rob. We shuffled some of the characters because originally we did shuffle some of the characters. Several of them were cast, but then moved to other roles because originally, here's another lesson learned, there was going to be a minor playing Mike, our main character, Mike. There was a 16-year-old who had auditioned to play Mike. And, in the initial conceptualization, they're younger anyway. So we were going to have this 16-year-old guy play Mike. He was excellent, really good. But don't try to cast a minor as one of your main characters. He was also out of state. He was going to have to come from Georgia to be in the show, but he really wanted to be in the show, but it was just way too complicated to get him over there. And then also during the shooting, his parent, he was trying to get into the acting guild. And then he had a commercial, that would qualify him for the guild or something like that he had to shoot, or what might be shooting in the middle of our shoot. And so his parents were like, is it okay if he leaves to go to that? And we were like, we're trying to coordinate with, all these different people. And so it was just, and then and then we found out that he doesn't drive. Like, I was thinking, man, if I were 16, I would love to do something like this. Drive over, sleep wherever, for the 2 weeks they're going to be shooting this show. I mean, this would be fantastic. But then we found out that he also doesn't have a driver's license. And so his mother is going to have to drive him around. So he can't also crash.
Hi, boys, I made everyone some snackies.
Yeah, well, that his mother needs her own hotel. So that becomes part of the budget that, she's going to have 2 weeks of hotel rental, and it was just too much. And then eventually we just decided, okay, I'm sorry, this is not going to work. So we lost our mic like 2 weeks before we started filming. That was a big deal. Like the main character, we decided, okay, this is not going to work. And so then, because Peter, who plays Mike, was originally Ben. So if you think about that, the main character Mike, he had originally gotten the role of Ben.
Okay.
Who is the neophyte cultist of Dagon. And so 2 weeks before all of this happened, Peter made a major play to Brianna that says, I think I can play Mike. I want to play Mike.
Okay,
and
so the actor took initiative on that.
Yeah, and he was right. I mean, now I can't imagine it being any other way. Of course it is, but
right. Okay, so you're getting your cast together, and obviously these are paid actors. This is the real deal. You've got your locations scouted. When you pitched the actors, how long did you tell them the project was going to take? 2 weeks, a month?
Yeah, like 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks. I think that we shot both season 1 and season 2 in 14 days. Now that was now there may have been a break. We didn't have many break days, but it was probably not solid. But there may have been a day or two off. But basically, we did the whole thing in 2.5 weeks, 14 days of filming. Wow. Now, not everybody had to be there for all 14 days, although a lot of people did, because there were a lot of scenes that had a lot of people in it. But the whole thing was shot for 14 days.
Who put together the shooting schedule?
Brianna did.
Okay, because that is a tall order. Okay, so she put that together. How many cameras did you use? One camera. Yep. Okay, and did you do any rehearsals, or was it more like Hollywood? It's not like a play where you rehearse, or was it more like Hollywood where, okay, lights, camera, action, go? It
was lights, camera, action, go. We did a read through for both of these. We did a read through before, but now there may have been rehearsals like on the day of shooting, before the camera rolled. We may have done that some, but for the most part, we were rolling on every take.
Okay, and as always, someone puts together a shooting schedule, things happen. Were there any major hiccups that caused very memorable delays?
No. By and large, on both season 1 and season 2, by and large, no. On season 1, we did end up having to cancel a day because it was just too cold. It was too cold. Like we had the 2 weeks that we were shooting the Cultists was the only 2 weeks in Alabama that we decided to have winter, that the sky decided to have winter. So there was one day that we called off shooting and said, we will have to reschedule. So I think we may have done like another half a day beyond what we were trying to do, but that's not a big deal. Like in the grand scheme of things,
pretty minor. Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, that was minor. And one day it was so cold, but we just powered through anyway. The girls were so cold, but they couldn't like reschedule. It's like, well, we're here now. We got to do this. So we did it. So we didn't have major scheduling issues, thank God. But that's how I knew also that I had never done this before. And I remember on the first 2 or 3 days on the set as we were shooting, I was like, okay, I've never done this before, so I don't really know if this is going well. So I mean, like, because I don't have anything to compare it to. I have nothing to compare this to. So I was like, how do I know if this is going well? Yeah, I don't know. Right. But I was like, you know what? But on the other hand, how would I know if this were going bad? Well, actually, there are ways I would know if this is going badly. Like if we're supposed to be here for 8 hours and we're here at 11 hours and we're still not done yet. Okay, well, that would be going bad. That would be going badly. Or if we do our day, because we watched all of the footage every day after the shooting. Like if we were watching the dailies, they're called the dailies. Brianna watched all the footage that we shot every day after the day of shooting. So everybody else would go home, but Brianna, the director of photography, and me, Brennan and me, our day continued because we watched every take that we shot during that day. And so I was like, well, if we were looking at these dailies and going, this sucks, like we got to redo this is not working, we don't have any, then I would know it was going badly. But so we finished on time on days, we weren't having to go for hours after. I wasn't having to hold people there for hours after. We finished by and large on time. We watched the dailies after that. We saw we had usable material, great material, more than just usable, but usable material, but then also good material. Like, okay, this word. So that's how I knew that, okay, this is actually going well. That's how this is going well.
And then two questions. What was the attitude toward actors improv during the script? Like, where they changed the script as they went? And roughly on average, how many takes did it take?
We didn't do a whole lot of improvisation. Now, sometimes there
Okay.
were. Like, I can probably come up with some different lines that were added and things like that, or a line that's added at the end that maybe kept or maybe cut. Some things, okay, let me adjust this line. But for the most part, there wasn't a whole bunch of improvisation. It pretty much went by the script. I'd say 95% it went by the script. We did actually try to have them improv some things for their characters. If you're looking at some of the after credits scene, we intentionally, if we had some extra time, which occasionally we did, we even had extra time. Sometimes we had them improv between their characters. So some scenes that are that are shown in after credit scenes in season 1 were just improv by the actors. But that was okay.
Oh, wow.
This is improv time. Hey, we have a few minutes, do some improv.
Yeah.
I don't know. We didn't do that for season 2 because I didn't think it really went overall all that well. But we got some improv shots and things like that for them. How many takes?
On average?
5, maybe 4.
5 takes per shot on average.
Yeah, something like that. Now, of course, you've also, because we're shooting with one camera. I'm saying on average, but since we're shooting with one camera, if you have a close up on one character, then that shot is somebody else's coverage. So you'll do a take that's like, if you got a room full of people talking, you'll do a few takes of the master shot, and then you'll be like, okay, now we want close ups on these characters, and so you'll do more takes where the camera is just on that character, and you're getting their coverage. So because we weren't shooting, we didn't have multiple cameras there to shoot, everybody, at one time, right? So we did, master shots and then coverage that Brianna and Brennan worked on prior to going out there and actually being on production. We didn't storyboard it. It was not storyboarded, but Brianna and Brennan did compile a master shot list of exactly what shots they wanted. Like, I want to make sure I get a close up of this character during this line, this line, or I want to make sure I'm over the shoulder with this, showing this, whatever. So they had a shot list that they had to work through.
And now, so it always happens. So you're one of the writers, you're a co-writer, you said, with Brianna. During the shooting, what was the most surprising thing that an actor did? Where they elevated what you imagined when you wrote it, where they did something unexpected that you're like, that's incredible. The actor just added to I had no idea. I had not seen that, but the actor did.
The Rob did that. Rob, Dax Rocker, who played Rob, consistently surprised me. I think with the development of something like that. We added a couple scenes in as we were walking, during filming and things like that we thought, Brianna and I thought of, but then we would script them and put them in. But funny things like the first time you see Rob, Mom opens the door and Rob is outside on the porch. And that's when you first see him, and he's standing there with his trident and his fish on his head, looking very, standing there very dignified, and standing there. She says, "Hey, your fish friend is here," and leaves the door open. But Brianna hadn't told him to actually walk through the door. So he just stands there, in the door outside as the door kind of closes on him. But that was so perfect. We left it. It was like, well, you could walk in, but on the other, and I think maybe we did some takes later. It's like, okay, yeah, when she says, okay, your fish friend is here, you can walk into the house. But the take that was left was him just standing there. Like, technically I was not invited in. So, the door's up, so I still just stand here, even though that was so fantastic.
Dracula rules.
When Dax does his opening monologue to explain who he is in episode 2. Hey, Rob here of the Esoteric Order of Dagon. I have been a cultist ever since I was first able to speak the first oath of Dagon to the darkness beyond my crib. So he's giving his line to the camera. He was in the zone as Rob, as he always was. And as we were sitting there watching, this fly, this like moth or something like this bug comes by and flies by the camera, and you can see it in this take. That was the take that we kept in there. And Rob doesn't even notice. Dax doesn't even know. He's so zoned in on the camera and delivering his monologue and talking about his grandmother as a deep one. He doesn't even notice, even as like this moth flies by the camera. He doesn't even distract him. That and then another time with him, that's in episode 10, when they're going to try to summon Cthulhu again. They have got the sacrificial victim this time is going to be the octopus that Shay uses as a sex toy. So she's sacrificing this octopi, sex toy thing. She hands it over to Rob, and he's supposed to tear it apart. Sacrifice it. Like he's got this thing. You're supposed to tear it apart and then put it on the altar. But the plastic was too hard for him to tear. But they stayed in character. He picks it up and he starts to, but he can't tear it apart because it's this like tough plastic or something like that. And he gets frustrated with it and goes to set it down on the altar, the bird feeder. But he sets it down in so much disgust that it bounces off the bird feeder and lands on this. And he like huffs in disgust. Dax does, picks it up again and throws it down on the bird feeder and puts his arms across, and it bounces off again. And Acantha walks over, Mallory Ivy walks over very calmly in character, picks up that squid and sets it back down and pats it as it's sitting on the altar. That was unscripted. That was them in character. That was. And that, of course, we were like, there can't be any other take other than that. Like that's the one that has to be used. And so when
that's some like unexpected synchronicity.
Stay in character. Even when something like that happens, and make it part of the show. That was amazing.
That's awesome. Out of all the actors there, which two of them do you think had the best chemistry?
The best chemistry together.
Yes.
Dax has that with Rob and Ben have that. So when you're talking about the Rob and Ben, they have that. But also Ben and Acantha. In fact, later it was Mallory had decided that perhaps that Acantha was in love with Ben.
Oh.
Which was not something that was scripted, but she kind of interpreted some of those scenes in that way.
Okay. I love that. That's the actor/actress bringing something out of that script that was unexpected.
Yeah, Rachel Marshall, who has been on the show, plays Shay, and Rachel Marshall and Mallory Ivy, who play the two witches of Azathoth, are friends in real life. They knew each other. They acted together.
Okay.
They're friends in real life. So their chemistry, by being friend witches, comes from them being friends in real life. I mean, they hung out together all the time. I think they still do. Mallory, I know, is often like doing acting jobs and things like that. That's what she does. But the opportunity to come back and hang out with one of her friends, they came in and auditioned together.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that was fantastic. You're doing a great job, Retro Nerd Girl says.
Oh, well, thank you, Retro. I appreciate that. Well, that makes me feel better. So you got your takes. You've done the production side of it. Was there anyone during the production, during the filming, that had a bad experience? I know you said it was cold one day.
So. Well, it was now. I mean, there was experiences like that. So yeah, one day it was horrifically cold, and we did call it off. We were like, Brianna and I made the call that like, okay, we can't hold everybody here. That was a pretty miserable day. So I mean, I would call that a bad experience, as far as that goes.
I guess what I'm asking is, did any of the actors, did you get a sense that any of the actors were like, man, I'm just not having a good time here? Was there
I
any?
never got that sense.
So it was very positive vibes on this.
It was very positive vibes, and of course, everybody except for one person came back for season 2, and I don't really know why that the actor who plays Dad was recast between season 1 and season 2, and I don't know why. Like I have no idea. He just declined. He just declined to return. I mean, could be any reason, but they all came back and were eager to do season 2, and so and I tried really hard. That doesn't mean that I was always successful, but that was a goal of mine, to make sure that we got a team here, and I want everybody to enjoy it. Like sometimes even after the show, now that like watching, sometimes like I decided, okay, maybe I did a little bit too much of this with watching the dailies. Sometimes people would come back to my house after the dailies, and I would have drinks for everybody. So after the day, you come back. Now we still had to get the dailies watched. Brianna still had to watch those because that work was still going on. So
that can be tedious. Yeah.
Wait a minute, we've had too much party. The work isn't actually over for Brianna and Brennan until all the dailies are watched. But people did that. They would come and they'd hang out, at my house after the show, like when we were shooting at the park or something like that. So, there was that, and I was very pleased for that. We had people stay here at my house who were actually living here at my house during the production. Brianna was living here during the production.
Wow.
And so a lot of people would crash at my house, and I would cook dinner every night. So when I came back in, I would cook dinner every night. So whoever was here and crashing at my house, we all ate dinner together.
Wow. So, okay. So you said one of your goals was to create a team around this. Do you guys still keep in touch?
Some of us do. Of course, see, some of them are, I was just pulling something out real quick.
Well, I'll just add real quick. I know that some of you do because you have had some of them on the channel, and
right. Some of them have been here on the channel. Yes.
As an outside observer, as someone who happened to be on the channel a couple times when that happened, my observation was that it was a pretty profound and memorable experience for several of the actors, and that they really enjoyed themselves, and that it left an impression on them. That was my take. Just listening to them talk and kind of reading them, as good as you can through Zoom. But that was the take I got. So I was just curious to hear your take on that.
I think that's true. And that's another reason why I wanted to do this relaunch, and I'm trying to remarket this and relaunch, because I want this out there in a big way, because I know that also for a lot of them, I mean, this show is a major part of their creative output, and it deserves to be watched. And it deserves to have attention put on it. And so, I don't think I marketed it the first time. Marketed as well as, obviously I didn't market as well as I could have the first time I put it out. I'm still learning everything. So that's why with this relaunch, this remarketing, one of the reasons that I want to do that is because I know that so many of them put so much effort into this. It needs to be out there for, their reels, their resumes, and all of that, and also their CV, right. That this was a major part of their creative output, and so I do feel some responsibility to, like, all right, I'm gonna try to remarket this. I'm gonna try to do it right, get more attention on it, and appreciate not only what I did as far as creating, producing, co-writing, but what Brianna did, what Megan did, what Brennan did, what every single actor and actress who was part of this came together in order to make this, because that's not easy. Most people don't have that. It's an hour long. It's only an hour long, but it's an hour long cultist comedy web series. And not many people get to make something like that. And we did season 1 and season 2. So if you haven't seen it, please do watch it, because everybody poured their heart into it.
I have a couple things. One, I want to highlight Druden Fuzz's most recent comment. And by the way, our hearts go out to you. Everything I guess I'm speaking for myself. Everything I know about migraines is that they're absolutely the worst. So when someone says, despite my migraine, doing something is worth their time, that's a huge compliment. So we really appreciate that. And then following up on what Sable just said, Heath, would you consider doing a live watch party for the Cultists now that we're getting some of the word out?
I have in the past.
No, would you consider doing it again?
Yeah, I would definitely do it again. At one time I was doing that on I kind of think that also needs to be a Halloween tradition. Watching the Cultists live needs. I've done that for the past couple of Halloweens, so I know I'll do it again this Halloween.
That's a good idea. I like that.
It just seems like Halloween. If other people, lots of people have things going on Halloween, but if you don't, it seems like the tradition should be for the past 2 years. It's been watching the Cultists live. So there's at least that.
Big question. Who was the editor? Because that is quite a task.
That was Brennan. Now,
Brennan did the editing.
Yeah. So Brennan was the director of photography. He was our lighting specialist, and he was our audio guy in season 1. And he was also our editor. Now, we started to break out that role into several different roles in season 2. We had assistant editors. I even did some editing. Brianna did some editing. But still, the overall editor for season 1 was Brennan. And then he was our editor in chief for season 2.
When did you know you had a final product?
We edited it pretty fast after I don't remember how long it took us exactly, but it was a couple of months. It wasn't like we did the post-production. We didn't hang on for 6 months or 8 months, something like that. It may have been maybe 3. I don't remember exactly. It's been a while, but within 3 months of the end of shooting, we had the final shows.
And did you have a live watch party with the whole crew? Like a premiere kind of thing?
I had a live watch party in Birmingham for season 2, but not too many people came. But I did do a watch. I did have it on a projector at a brewery in Birmingham for season 2.
Okay. So and you said you shot season 1 and season 2 together.
No, we did not. No. Season 2 came 2 years later.
Okay, so that ended season 1. And then you invited everybody back to do a season 2. Did you have scripts already prepared, or did you write the scripts after you finished season 1?
We wrote the scripts after we finished season 1. But Brianna and I, right after, Brianna and I, even after we were coming home from days at work we were already thinking of new ideas for season 2 and taking notes and what season 2 needs. We should totally do a season 2. So Brianna and I wrote the season 2 scripts soon after season 1.
How would you compare the experience between shooting season 1 and 2?
Season 2 went so much smoother because everybody knew what to do. I knew so much more about what to do because, like I said, never done something like that on season 1 at all. Season 2, you get all of that experience, but everybody else has all of the experience too. I mean, Brianna has increased experience, both of us, for writing, but then as a director, so much more experienced as far as the directing goes. I mean, Brennan has a career in videography. So,
we just saw one of his movies.
Yeah, we just saw one of his movies, right? Yeah,
Veal.
So you can see where he's been going, right? Veal. So, and he worked on commercials, commercials, commercials as part of his job and things like that. So he had a dramatic increase in skill set because that was one of the very first things that he had ever done. As soon as he got out of college, basically I hired him. His first job as a director of photography was doing dinner and a board game in the Cultists.
That's great. I love hearing that.
And and then he went, and got other jobs in the industry, and then came back and did Cultist season 2. The actors had more acting experience after that. So it also, season 1 went very smoothly. Its filming did, which was incredible for what it was. I mean, that you have to be logistically minded, and pay attention to details and things like that. And fortunately, Brianna and I do that, so and that's what made season 1 go. But then when you get to season 2, it was a well-oiled machine, and it would be even more so if we were to do a season 3. It would be even more so if we did season 3.
Wow. And now, Heath, would you say that filming The Cultists was one of the greatest things you've done? One of the most enjoyable experiences?
I would. As far as enjoyable, yes, absolutely. That was some of my favorite memories of my life are being on set at season 1, season 2 for The Cultists. I mean,
wow.
I would not take that experience back for anything. I mean, being a part of that and making that kind of thing happen. And again, that's why I say that I completely understand why people just decide, hey, what I'm doing is I'm going to be on film sets, because it's such a fantastic experience. So making that happen, watching everybody bring everything, your words to life. I mean, it was incredible.
Wow. And now, looking forward, what are your goals? So obviously you are relaunching The Cultists. What are the goals? What are the new goals here? What are the plans going forward?
The goal is still what I set out when I left the university. Is I'm still trying to come up with a system by which we can create stories in a sustainable way, and build IP from this, because there aren't that many web series out there. I mean, like, we thought that I was inspired by The Guild, absolutely, when we were making The Cultist, not from the the type of comedy was more inspired by The Office, obviously. But as far as the web show side of this, obviously inspired by The Guild. But overall, we don't have the level of success 20, 25, 30 years on with the internet, at least 20 years on with the internet, when you could actually make something like a web series that has produced viable web series, that have produced franchises or have produced IP. Like, we just don't have that. And that's for a lot of reasons that have to do with the expense of that kind of production versus what you can expect the return to be. And I've been searching for a model where that can actually be viable. And that was my intention, was to develop this kind of model. And that's why I've been trying for The Cultists, for Rabivania, for Theophany. For this, I have all these different ideas, but what I don't have is a whole sustainable model and an engine yet that allows them to all get created and produced and consistently and sustainably, and we all move forward. Once I get that figured out, that's still my major goal. If I can get that figured out, then we'll create an engine to start making a lot more stuff going forward.
So what can we do? You have a campaign starting in about a month. What can we do to support you in this endeavor?
Then I need you to be there for the Kickstarter campaign. So at the moment, if you are not signed up here, I'm giving away $500 worth of Elder Dice, these brilliant dice we were talking about earlier on. And so that's going to put you on the email list so that I can contact you directly when this goes live. Will be entered for the drawing and things like that. But then when this goes live and we do the Cultists RPG on Kickstarter, and also we got shirts, we got like the Cultist shirts, and also the miniatures for the Cultists. There'll probably be 3D printable files. It looks like how that's going to go. Let me put this link in here. Sign up for the Cultists. That's the big thing. I would say don't rely on the algorithm letting you know that these things are live. So that's one of the big things that I'm working on now. It's why I've set this up, and why over the next 30 days I'm going to be promoting this giveaway, is because one of the obstacles to doing these things in an independent way is that you cannot rely on the algorithm. Just because, like, you watch something on YouTube and you're like, oh, I watched that on YouTube. Now, if they're doing a crowdfunding campaign I'll know. No, you won't. I mean, you know that, like, that YouTube's going to show you whatever, and everything is like that now. So an important part of this, I think, is going to be developing a durable email list of people who said, yes, I'm interested. let me know when that way we're going to go around the algorithm. Because that was part of the launch of season 1, that, okay, I was too heavily reliant on the algorithm and YouTube to let, if people watch, then I'll be able to communicate with them and let them know that something else is coming, or that we're going to be funding this, or what. And that just isn't true. So whether that's me or whether that's somebody else who is independent, if you can get on something that is outside of the algorithm, if you want to know something that's happening and you have a way, like they have some kind of sign up or something like that allows you to get around the algorithm, that's a big part of this. And then
have you considered a newsletter?
Well, right. So I'm going to be, yes, because I'm going to be emailing. We have more stuff going on now with the live streams, with Table Talk, with the Morning Grind, with the development. So there is more stuff going on now. So my plan is to start sending out a weekly email. If you start this, I want Ravenkeep to be sending out an email once a week. Maybe Tuesday would be a good day for that, because then we could talk about, hey, what's coming on Table Talk tonight, and what's going on the Morning Grind the next morning, and things like that. So that's where we're going. And I'm going to hit that hard. So I'm going to hit that hard for a month as soon as my videos are done. So here in the next few days, whatever, I'm going to hit the email list building hard. And that's going to be a core part of this. But then, and let people know what's going on. But the idea, my idea early on, which I have yet to validate, which I'm trying to validate with this, at least in a small way, this campaign, is even when I was talking to David about Journey to the Tree of Sorrows and doing stories, we basically thought, hey, I don't know that we're going to be able to sell the stories in any major or meaningful way that is self-sustaining. I mean, you can do, but okay. Sell on, Amazon Kindle and things like that. But we're like, okay, if we're trying to build this, can we give people, are we going to be able to sell a novel, or even a short story or something like that in some way that's large enough to sustain this whole operation? And we came to the conclusion overall that no. So we don't think that's possible. Therefore, we're not really going to try. We're going to give the stories away, which is basically the model that I've been working on. So the Cultist was very expensive to produce, but the model, if I can get this engine working, is okay, let's give the stories away. So the Cultist is free to watch. That is up there. You can watch that free, but then design a line of products that are associated with each story. And if you like the story, then you can come and be part of like a crowdfunding campaign for those products, which are like the Cultist RPG, the shirts, the associated things. So the idea is, if there's enough interest in the story, then perhaps we could fund the operation through the associated products. So, and that way also you don't have to worry about people, like if you're trying to sell Star Wars. I just saw Star Wars. You're right. Yes. So that, of course, Star Wars did sell tickets. There were tickets to go and see the movie. But there's no ticket to see the Cultists. So that's the ultimate model that I'm trying to develop. And if I can get it's very difficult for multiple reasons. One of which is that I do everything. So it's not only about making the story now, it's also about making all of the associated products. So when you're trying to bring all of this out, it's not only the stories, it's also all of the products. And so that's why I have had a difficult time over the past couple of years, or 2 to 3 years, like matching, okay, I got to have a great story and I've got to have the associated products. And in some cases I'll have the story, and in other cases I'll have the products ready. And I've been going back and I've been missing. But if I can bring those things together and I can develop the model, then I think we're going to have something that is replicable and sustainable for Ravenkeep for this kind of independent production. That's the goal, to figure out how that works. As I said, in other places, I've tried to figure out how to do things in the past, and then, implemented them with other people. So I'm still in the, can I figure this out? Once I get this figured out, then we're going to start rolling and we're going to implement it a lot. So that's why this is important. So
and now I also understand you're working on an RPG version of the Cultists. Is that correct?
Well, yes. So that's what is on the Kickstarter campaign. That's the major item on the Kickstarter campaign, is the Cultists RPG, which I've been working on the Heath Geekverse channel on the Morning Grind with a lot of the people who are in the chat right now. So that's based on the low stakes rules. So we brought in a rule set from Low Stakes by Craig Campbell. He said that we could use his rule set. So and his rule set was designed. He wanted to do a role playing game that was based on what we can do in the shadows, or what we can do in the shadows, what we do in the shadows. What can we do in the shadows? That was based on mockumentary style role playing. And I said, hey, wait a minute, this could be adapted for the Cultists. So that's the idea. That's the product. So we have the role playing game. I got miniatures sculpted. Like here's Ben right here. I don't know. No,
nice.
I hadn't painted him yet. I'm still in the process of painting him. But like here's Rob. So I got miniatures of these guys. Brianna created a whole bunch of shirts and also vinyl stickers based on different parts of the Cultists. So on the Kickstarter, we're gonna have the role playing game. We will have the you're
a little blurry Heath.
After that. I went blurry after that. But so yeah, it's a game related Kickstarter. So the idea then is that okay,
you're still blurry.
Can we create games? Because I'm a game. We talked about all the importance of games in the beginning. Let me see if I can refocus this. But anyway, because I'm a gamer, it seems and have experience in the game side of things with Elder Dice and the games I did with my brother and stuff like that. I do have that kind of institutional knowledge right there to try to use.
You're still blurry.
I know. I'm working on trying to refocus. Hang on.
Okay.
I'm working on it. I was talking. Let me.
Now, obviously, everyone in the chat, including myself, we're all looking forward to your campaign coming up and the success of this. One other question that I had was, is there a season 3 of the Cultists on the drawing table?
There was. Brianna and I got busy writing some season 3 after season 2. And that was before she and I had started our deep dive into story on Table Talk, which you have been a major part of here.
Right.
So we had written season 3 and we're trying to get it done. But then because I mismarketed the release of the Cultists the first time we did it, okay, we weren't generating revenue. There was nothing to do with season 3 with. As I was like, this is my fault. Like that's the part of the story that I hadn't learned yet. Or, the part of this is important. How do we launch this in a sustainable way to generate further revenue? So she and I did write. We wrote season 2 to kind of be concluded with season 3, to conclude the entire story with season 3. So it would conclude the entire story with season 3. But she and I did read because I was wondering if on the Kickstarter page we should talk about like what would it take to raise money to do season 3. It would be very expensive to do a season 3. But we went back and we reread all of our season 3 material and we're like, gee, we have grown so much as storytellers. We would have to completely rewrite season 3. So there was season 3 written. It would need to be rewritten extensively. And now I was even thinking that, if this is a big huge if, but if we were to return to the world of the Cultists, because we did have some measure of success, we should conclude the story with just an independent film instead of trying to do it as a web series again. That it could be completely rewritten. The season 3 material could be rewritten, improved, and perhaps adjusted so it's standalone and independent or something like that. So we've thought about that, but right now there's no funds for season 3. There's no scripts and there's no ready scripts and no funds.
Well, and then one of the most important questions, will you write a role for James Bacon?
I thought of one. That how would you add you and James Bacon to the yes,
James Bacon says he wants to play a dwarf, but he can only role play as a human based on his knowledge base. Well, that's great, Heath. I'll tell you what, you're an interesting guy. You've been very active and you've been doing an awful lot of work and you've been very productive. And it sounds like you've really had a big impact on so many people, myself included, many people in the chat, the actors and people involved in the Cultists. And Sable Phoenix has sent in a super chat.
Thank you, Sable.
He says, I know that the idea of a sort of creative collaboration clearinghouse in the Geekverse has been mentioned on both the Morning Grind and Table Talk before. Is that something you'd like to see? And what would be your ideal outcome?
Yes. So I do think about that. In fact, I was thinking about that actually the other day, because, okay, one of the problems that I have is that I'm also the creative driver for everything, not only the show, but also the products. It's all has to go through me.
Right.
So that makes it very slow. So I've been very slow in getting all these different projects going, getting the engine turning, and being able to iterate and then figure out what worked and what didn't work for another iteration, things like that. It would be easier if that would be why you should just be a publisher and publish other people's things. So that would be like what the Geekverse could be if it were a clearinghouse and be a label for, because then we would be having all of our creative energy. Like, there could be another book next month or another short story or another whatever next month and the month after, because it's multiple people who are bringing something out under a brand. That would be operating more like a publisher.
Heath,
Now,
I own a publishing company.
Okay. Well, so do I.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess what Sable is saying is, is there any possibility that all of us can collaborate on something? I think that would be, there's obviously a lot of talent.
Yes, it's but then I think that, okay, well, now I could probably do something like that, but then my job would probably be only publisher. Like, then I might not be able to do any of the creative things, because then my job in that would be publishing all of the other materials. So does that mean that my stuff ever gets done? I don't know. I don't know. So I've run the publishing companies, but in all the cases, the publishing company has only published what I created. That was the case when I was working with my brother. We only published what it was that we created. When I was working with David at Infinite Black, we only published what we created. And people would come and talk to me about, hey, would you publish this? And then immediately when somebody comes to you, you realize why that answer can be no, why there can be 100 reasons why that answer can be no, even though that has nothing to do with the quality of that person's product.
Well, there's also,
so that's kind of what I'm thinking about here too. It's like, well, gee, if there's a publishing house, like, will my job be only as business and publishing?
Yeah.
Which is not
so
necessarily
the answer,
what
Sable, is maybe. It sounds like, obviously, I think everyone here recognizes that the group here, the community that Heath has created is full of very, very intelligent people and very creative and talented people. I was actually, when I first jumped into the YouTube world, I did so through Heath, and I was so happy to run into so many people that are like-minded and like smart and creative. Like, it was actually an exciting thing to come out here and to meet all of you. So, and on that line, I would like to highlight James Bacon sent in a super chat, and he said,
"Thank you, James.
I wouldn't be doing YouTube if not for Heath, which means I wouldn't have had Jax on, which means other projects that are now beginning would never have had a start. I have a lot to thank you for, and I love the creative outlet of talking in chat and editing your work." And James,
thank you, James. Thank you, James.
Yeah, Heath is very appreciative of you, and I can even just say again, as one of the newcomers, your contributions in the chat are at the apex level, like the highest possible level. So, I think James is one of many of us that are very appreciative for you, Heath. Not only the community you built, but the sense of purpose sometimes. Like, hey, I think I want to do something. I'm going to get started on something. You've always stressed that we're not just commentators and critics. We are
doers. We are doers.
Right.
Yeah. And Sable does say, unless you get somebody else whose expertise is that, but right. But okay. But then, there would have to be revenue in order to to pay them. And I did have that at one time. I mean, I had a pretty good team here. But even something like dinner and a board game, like the coordination of shooting the dinner segments. Like, I mean, it would be fantastic if there was like an associate producer of dinner and a board game whose job it was to, and they coordinated the dinner segments, even if I'm in it, but like they coordinated and they'd be like, Heath, be here at this time, whatever. And then they take that and do it. That would be amazing. So if the gears can get turning, then more stuff like that is possible. If I can get the model working, but at the moment it is still just me. I was doing a bunch of stuff, and then I missed the mark, so I'm going back down. So now I'm just me again, trying to pull this back up, and I would love it.
It takes time. It takes time, Heath, and timing is something else. You can have a great idea at the wrong time, and an okay idea at the exact right time. So a lot goes into success. But you're definitely, from my opinion, you're definitely the kind of guy that is productive, creative. And you do something that a lot of people don't, which is bring people together. That is a special skill, in my opinion, that very rare, and it's something that I think is very special.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doug.
Yeah, that was my soapbox moment on your behalf.
Thank you. I see everybody in the comments too. You're very kind.
Are there any other questions or comments from the chat that you would like us to consider?
You've done an amazing job, Doug. This was a fantastic conversation. Thank you very much for doing this. And
thank you.
I don't often get a chance to just talk like this. So
what's that?
I don't often get a chance to talk like this. So thank you for giving me.
Well, to be perfectly honest, that's why I offered to do this, because you've given everyone a platform. So much has come from that I was like, you know what? I want to pay you back. I want to give you even though it's your channel, I want to give you a chance to just talk about what you're doing, because you are doing so much. And I also got the sense, just by being a part of other streams, that the Cultists was a major event, a pivotal event that all of, not just you, but several of the actors and Brianna have remembered. So it seemed like there was a lot there. And since you're going back to work on the Cultists and relaunching it, I thought that it would be a great thing to really dig into that.
Well, thank you. And next week, you have not watched the Cultists yet, Doug?
I have not.
Okay. So you've not watched it yet. So you're going to watch it before next week, because next week we'll do a conversation on actually the story and what the Cultist is, and the story and its meaning and that kind of stuff. And Brianna can also talk, because Brianna's going to be here as well. She can talk about this from the director's side too, and the writing. And so if you have not seen the Cultist yet, go over to the Cultist YouTube channel. I'll put the link in there, and it's only an hour. There's a playlist. In fact, I'll put this up. So on the Cultists.
Well, and let me clarify. I have not seen all of the Cultist episodes.
Yeah, you did start. Yes,
I did, but the original plan was to have me wait to watch it so that I could watch it all and interview them about the actual show.
Right.
But that's really the discussion for next Tuesday.
That's next week. Yeah. So that's next week. So, and we wanted it to be fresh anyway. So we said, we told Doug, don't just charge in and watch it right now. Watch it so that it'll be fresh when we're here. So we will actually be, if you haven't seen it, watch it. And then Brianna and Doug and I will be here on next Tuesday to actually discuss the creative element of the show and the story and stuff like that.
Yes.
I see everybody. So we can talk about that more tomorrow on the Morning Grind on the Heath Geekverse, right? Because I see the relationship between the publishing and the, I will absolutely come on Retro. So I'm going to start reaching out to some other YouTubers as well. As soon as I finish these promotional videos, because I've got previews of the role-playing game, and I'm going to send out all of this information to some other YouTubers who are definitely on that. And I hope that I'll be able to go around and be on some other shows, do some show exchanges with them. And I would love to come and be on your show, Retro, and talk about this. Hopefully I'll be on some other channels and things like that over the next maybe 2 months or something like that as we try to relaunch the Cultists. So yeah. So all right. Well, maybe the Geekverse and things like that would be a good topic for tomorrow. I don't for tomorrow's Morning Grind, because I know there are people who can do things, and I have tried, and unfortunately I feel like I have always failed. But I try to find out when I've failed in this endeavor. I like to talk to other people to find out what their goals are and what they are trying to do. I always make it a point to try to find out what they're trying to do. And that way, when some project is going forward, I know, oh, no, wait a minute. So this project aligns with what you're trying to do. Well, I mean, that was the beginning of the Cultists. Also, okay,
Right.
I want to write and produce something. Okay, Brianna wants to write and direct something. Oh, then we should get together. That's perfect. I'll write and produce. You write and direct. Brennan wants to be a director of photography. So Brennan, okay, that's right. So, all right, we should all be doing this project together. And we're all creating the Cultists, but we're all advancing our goals as well. Brianna is a
Right.
director. He is a director of photography. Megan as a costumer. The others as actors. So I try to talk to people about what they are trying to do, so that if there are projects that are going on, we can all do that part of do our parts of the project, and it all advance ourselves. I feel like that part is something that I have missed, not been hugely successful with. But if I can find that, if there are people like, okay, so what are your skills, what are you trying to do, and what are your goals, and are being part of a project in some way, moving us all toward the goal, our own goals, well, that's perfect.
Well, Heath, and I would just add, don't underestimate the power of your skill of bringing people together. I don't want you to undervalue that, because that is quite a skill, and myself and everyone in this chat recognizes that, and I think it's a more powerful skill than you might imagine, than you might know. So, anyway,
James,
I just wanted to pass that on.
James, you're right. I started to create this. I had a list of people to contact, but that was I started to creating that list before you started doing YouTube. So I should put you on this list. So I'm going to put Bacon Gaming on this list over here. I got about 30 people on it, but I'm not going to reach out to them all. I'm going to, but now you are on it, James. Retro, you were already on it, so Retro's on there.
And thank you, BGD.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Well, and I'll tell you, I came on here to interview you and to really, to talk and give you a chance to talk about the Cultists, and really, but it's also been a fascinating discussion. I've really enjoyed the discussion. I've learned a lot about what went into it, and you personally. So I thought this was great. This was a fun discussion, and yes, I hope everyone enjoyed it.
I hope everyone did too. We've got lots of people here, and I really appreciate everybody in the chat and your questions and your support. So this is great. So, yes, I want to find a way to make this work. This is kind of my life's work now, because I'm not really doing anything else. I mean, I've kind of given everything else up to try to figure out how to make all of this work, and I'm still trying to put all the pieces together correctly. But I feel like I'm getting closer and closer, even though it's slow. So this is what I'm doing. So. All right.
Well, I think you're doing a great job, and hang in there. It doesn't always come right away, and these things sometimes take time, and I think you're doing great work.
Thank you, Doug. All right. Well, no, thank you very much for this and this interview and being a part of this channel. This was great. All right. So everybody, I'll be on the morning grind tomorrow on the Heath Geekverse channel tomorrow at 9:30. And Joseph says, I had no idea this even existed. Now I do. I had no idea who Heath was, and I'm glad I know about him. Well, thank you.
I like this Joseph guy.
Yes, thank you, Joseph. So we'll see more of you. The Heath Geekverse channel, that's the other channel. I guess I should probably put that up before I go. If you're here and you have not my channel. Right. So the main channel where I talk mostly about tabletop gaming is Heath Geekverse right here. So if you're here, I'll be live tomorrow. We'll be talking about gaming. We can talk about the Geekverse tomorrow. Heath Geekverse over there. And that's where I'll be posting the promotional videos too, since they're tabletop gaming related. So enjoy the Cultists. Hey, let's try to make stuff happen. And if we can find ways to make something happen for all of us, then let's do it.
And also, I would just say, just as part of the community, check out Bacon Gaming and Retro Nerd Girl. They also have channels. They're a part of this community, and they also do great work on their own.
Absolutely.
So just something else to consider.
Yes, please do. All right. Well, I guess we're out of here. So see everybody on the morning grind tomorrow, and then see everybody go watch the Cultists for a discussion of the actual show next week.
And we will
All
be
right.
here next week. That's right.
Later, everybody.